Events develop in the motherland of mages, Archaea. Since ancient times, this country has been filled with the strongest magicians. But one day, humanity was deprived of this blessing, so Archaea lost that power. Archaea turned into a small kingdom. The country had to look for other ways of survival. For example, bets were placed on a profitable marriage. The excited young man begged to say that it was a lie. It was the second prince of the Archaea kingdom, Xander Ketteril. He turned to his sister and assured her that it was not too late to change his decision. The older youth admonished him to speak more quietly. It was the first prince of the kingdom of Archaea, Dietrich Ketteril. He explained that this conversation was not for outside ears, but Xander did not calm down. He shouted, "Is it really possible to force one's own sister to take such a step as to become the wife of Canak Riadon?" The young man asked his brother if he had heard of rumors beyond the walls of the kingdom, as if Archaea had signed peace by selling the princess. He added that this tyrant kills people for entertainment. The first princess of the Archaea kingdom, Ezebia Ketteril, asked Xander to stop. Xander turned to his sister again, pleading with her, but she replied that she wanted this marriage, not Brother Dietrich. Ezebia added that it was entirely her decision, so she asked not to make too much noise. Xander wanted to contradict his sister, but heard back that everything would be fine. He asked the princess why she does that. She replied that he should watch over his father and obey his older brother. She asked him to protect himself. Dietrich thanked Sister Ezebia. He added that the inhabitants of Archaea owe her their lives. Ezebia understood that for a noble girl, marriage for love is an incredible luxury. She thought that this union was the only way to protect Archaea from possible danger. Therefore, the only thing left for her was to mourn her fate. After all, saving the kingdom is an honor for a girl. The priest asked Ezebia Ketteril if she agreed to marry Canak Riadon. The girl agreed. She understood that her future husband was the emperor. The priest announced that he declared them husband and wife in the name of the destroyer goddess Fakar. He suggested that they make a vow kiss that would seal their union. Cana asked the girl to close her eyes. There was a kiss between the spouses, after which they were both silent. The young man asked his young wife if everything was okay with her. The girl asked excitedly. Ezebia thought to herself that they had made this sworn kiss and there was no going back. She understood that from this day on, this young man would be her legal husband. After the wedding ceremony, Canak ordered the knights to search and prepare for the journey. The young princess regretted that the ceremony had passed so quickly and that her husband had been stolen from her. But at the same time, she understood and accepted the fact that the young emperor could not leave the kingdom for so long. So Ezebia wondered if this meant he was putting country first. The girl mentioned the rumors around that he was allegedly a real tyrant. The emperor seemed like a god to his young wife. The princess thought that he commanded the respect of all the people around him, not that she was inexperienced. Ezebia considered herself nothing compared to him. According to legend, the Ketteril family received the blessing of the guardian of the Silver Forest. Therefore, in every generation, there is one magician who is able to reveal the magic that flows deep underground and protect the country. Ezebia knew that in this generation, the role of mage fell to her, but at the same time, she received few magical powers and abilities. The princess was worried whether she would cope with the title of empress. In her mind, she thought that when she got bored with the emperor, she would simply be thrown out into the street. Someone was secretly following the girl, who was in deep thoughts about her future. Ezebia wondered what was going on behind the trees. Unexpectedly, an arrow flew towards the princess. The knights nearby asked what happened. One of them answered that there was a shooting. Someone shouted that the carriage was under attack and asked if the empress was all right. The guards wondered if Ezebia was injured. Shortly before that, the princess confessed to her older brother that she was afraid, and she did not want to go to the kingdom of Riadon, and even more so to become the wife of Canak. She said the thought of it made her blood run cold, and wondered if there was another way to save the empire. Dietrich replied that it pained him to watch her suffer, but said there was nothing they could do. The prince explained that Archaea had already lost all strength to fight. Their warriors were exhausted, and all supplies were almost gone. The brother suggested that it would be good if a mage capable of protecting an entire country heard them. Such was the reality. They had to do everything possible and impossible to survive. Ezebia believed that Dietrich was right. She regretted not having enough strength to protect Archaea. The girl heard how she, the empress, was being called and begged to open her eyes. She wondered what it was, because she had just been hit by an arrow. From the side, Ezebia saw the emperor holding a girl and calling her loudly. He begged the girl to come to her senses. The young princess guessed that the body in his hands was her. The knights behind tried to tell His Highness that the empress, unfortunately, had already died. Konnik stated that he was to blame for everything. The emperor shouted that those vile northerners were not to be trusted. He regretfully thought that there was no need to even agree to these games of theirs. Ezebia was shocked by everything she saw and refused to believe it. Konnik reported that the union was destroyed. He threatened that Archaea would pay in blood for treason. The emperor decided that it was necessary to return immediately and begin preparations for war. Alive, Ezebia tried to stop him. She desperately screamed and called out to His Highness. The young girl could not do anything, but she felt pain in her whole body. Ezebia tried to move, but she could not. She heard some footsteps and words that the kingdom of Archaea would be looking at its destruction. Quite unexpectedly, Her Highness recognized the footsteps of Dietrich, who pitied the poor sister and regretted that she was bleeding. She was happy that it was an older brother and thanked God. Some stranger asked Dietrich if His Highness was satisfied with the implementation of this plan. The first prince admitted that he was not just happy, because at last they got rid of all obstacles. Ezebia could not believe her ears when she heard about the obstacles. Dietrich wanted to make sure that she was definitely dead. The stranger told the prince not to worry. The man explained that the arrow went straight to the heart, so death was guaranteed. The princess heard this conversation from the side. The prince turned to the interlocutor and noted that this was not the end of the deal. He reminded him that he allowed his sister to be killed in exchange for power capable of destroying the Riadan Empire. The stranger assured that His Highness could not worry, and this long war would end with the victory of Archaea. He added that Dietrich's name would spread across the continent. The prince said that he was sorry, because Konnik had taken Ezebia's body. She was a mage, so even her corpse could come in handy. Another man said he was sorry about it too. Ezebia remembered that her brother had once told her that there would be a war between Archaea and the kingdom of Riadan, and she became a ghost in the forest, where she was killed. It was a real hell, and the princess remembered the horror she saw in that forest. The soldiers shouted and urged them to immediately take shelter, but unfortunately, Ezebia could not do anything and change anything. The girl noted that there was no end to the war and she could only watch. First, Prince Dietrich planned to win over the kingdom of Riadan by uniting with a small northern country. To all this was added the accusation of Riadan for the alleged murder of the princess. But Kana quickly managed to put an end to everything. He got victory after victory, which was painfully reflected on Archaea. Ezebia, watching everything from the side, regretted that everything she loved so much had lost its meaning in the face of war. She saw the murdered younger brother Xander and mourned over his body. It so happened that in the third year of the war, Dietrich was captured and presented to Emperor Konnik. The emperor ordered that the first Prince Archaea be killed. Dietrich responded by calling Konnik a fool and a miserable slave. He also shouted that the emperor had killed his entire family, and the Ketteril family would always curse him. The emperor addressed the young man, calling him King Archaea, and noted that he would not calm down. He added that Dietrich could curse him even after death. This will allow him to get rid of even his ghost sooner. Then a terrible picture appeared before Ezebia. The emperor was asked what he would order to do next. His Highness replied that everything should be burned here. The princess sat and silently mourned her elder brother. She asked if this was what he wanted, and if his plans were more important than her, his younger brother and his father. Ezebia appealed to the Silver Forest and asked to hear her. The girl begged him to hear her cry and help her. She agreed to give her soul in exchange for a chance of salvation for Archaea. The princess desperately begged to be given a chance to turn back time. Unexpectedly, she heard a voice addressing her by name and calling her dear child. She thought to herself, was it really a silver forest? Above Ezebia stood her father and brother, who continued to call her in turn. She couldn't believe her eyes that her dad and Xander were there. It all seemed so unreal to her. She remembered that she saw the dead bodies of her relatives with her own eyes. The father asked the doctor if there would be any side effects, because the princess had a bad night. The girl wondered how it was that now they are all alive and well next to each other. The doctor assured the gentleman that everything was fine with the princess. She simply changed the color of her hair and eyes, which is typical for a mage. Nevertheless, he added that this happened for the first time in 100 years, so they do not know all the details. Ezebia remembered that she became a mage when she was 10 years old, so did she go back in time? The girl refused to believe in all this, and believed that she was going out of her mind, or that these were hallucinations. The brother turned to his sister and asked her not to be sick anymore, because they should be together. Ezebia touched Xander and noted that he was warm. Then it was definitely not a dream. The young man asked the girl why she was so excited. The princess wept and decided that the Silver Forest had heard her prayers. She did not stop thanking for another chance. The girl decided that now she would not lose the opportunity to fix everything. She promised to protect her family and country at any cost. But at the same time, Ezebia understood that she would need strength. This power must be more powerful than any guardians. According to legend, Arkai's deity was a silver forest. She was the sister of the goddess Fakhar, but after her death she was reborn and became a silver tree at the very end of the world. Arkaya was a kingdom next to the forest that grew around the silver tree. Therefore, the inhabitants of the kingdom began to ask for blessings from the silver forest. Those who received this blessing became Arkai's guardians. These heroes protected the kingdom from all dangers. But soon, the good days of Arkae passed. Magic disappeared from the continent, and the blessing of the silver forest ended. The country was on the path of destruction without guards. Therefore, the awakening of the princess now became the only hope for salvation. The people greeted the princess and rejoiced that a keeper had finally appeared among them. Ezebia became a real jewel of the kingdom, but soon it became known that she could not use the necessary magic. All she could do as a guardian was talk to trees and flowers. The girl decided that something went wrong when she woke up. The plants turned to Ezebia and told her that they would not have been able to become friends if she had not awakened her magic. But the princess remained upset, because even though the trees were too kind to her, criticism from the people still won. Her Highness thought that in her past life she could only watch the decline of the kingdom, but now things must be different. She decided that if the silver forest granted her wish, then perhaps it gave her the power to protect the country. Ezebia continued to practice with her power, and suddenly something happened and she screamed. A plant grew in the pot, and the girl disappointedly asked if it was all magic. She wondered if the silver forest had brought her back to life just for the sake of it, and he hadn't fulfilled her basic wish. At the same time, she understood that now her magical power is still greater than in her past life. But with that many, she won't be able to stop Kanaha. Ezebia's thoughts were interrupted by her elder brother Dietrich, who greeted her. The girl was surprised to see him. The young man reported that he had heard the news about his sister's awakening. He said that everyone was talking about the severe pain she felt immediately after waking up and expressed his sadness about it. She remembered Dietrich's words on the battlefield that even the corpse of such a mage would come in handy. The first prince saw the strange reaction of the princess and asked if she was all right. Ezebia apologized and explained that she had not yet fully recovered after waking up. She added that she is now too sensitive to everything and asked for her brother's understanding. Dietrich agreed that she was still on the mend and must have been really sick. He reassured his sister that it would soon be much easier. Ezebia now knew her brother's true intentions, so every action of his seemed unreal to her. She said that she felt discomfort from such a strong handshake. Dietrich admitted that his heart was breaking with the pain and that he was sorry to have to talk about it under such circumstances. The princess excitedly asked what he wanted to talk about. The young man said that she was now the new guardian, but admitted that many people around were indignant and did not believe in the blessings of the silver forest. Do they have doubts about whether the princess can use magic? The girl was outraged by such a statement, and her brother reassured her that he personally did not consider her magic to be fiction. Ezebia did not understand where these doubts came from. Dietrich explained that she had awakened as a guardian, but could not cast a single spell. The girl began to make excuses that it was not so. The prince reassured his sister so that she would not reproach herself and not put the impossible on herself. Ezebia felt something strange. His face was so familiar in these kind words. She happily informed her brother that she could use magic. She admitted that she talked to the plants in the garden, and they told her about the past. She assumed that perhaps this is her peculiarity and asked what to do with her. Dietrich replied that it was not magic, but stupid tricks. He added that people would be upset if they found out that the princess was so weak. The girl was unpleasantly surprised when her brother advised her to keep quiet about her abilities and promised to protect her. People around really whispered that the princess really couldn't use her magic. They speculated that perhaps it was a curse rather than a blessing, and she was not a keeper. Dietrich once again assured her that his brother was close by and would take care of everything, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with the fact that she will not do anything. The prince asked if Ezebia was all right. The girl heard another voice behind her, telling her that she knew everything in advance, that everything would be exactly like this. Did she really think she could protect Arkaya and get revenge? The voice said it was all an illusion, and she couldn't do anything. He reported that the Silver Forest did not choose her. Ezebia heard someone say that the Silver Forest just wanted her to go through this hell again. The princess resolutely said that this would not happen. Dietrich silently observed everything and did not understand anything. He asked again if Ezebia was all right, but she answered that everything is fine. The girl decided that first she needed to go to the Silver Forest and find out what he wanted from her, even if he wasn't going to save her. They found themselves in the northern forest, which was the border of the world. The knights warned the princess that it was too dangerous here and that it was necessary to turn back. Ezebia replied that she could not return yet. The father asked his daughter if she really wanted to go to the Silver Forest. The girl replied that she had already woken up, so she should visit the Silver Forest. The father gently replied to his daughter that this place does not allow anyone except the king of Arkai. But even the king is allowed to visit it only once. He explained that the Silver Forest was not so kind. Sometimes he can be kind, and sometimes he can be fierce. The king began to tell that he once fell on his knees, begging to bring her mother back to life. But the forest did not hear his desperate prayers. Because resurrection from the dead contradicts the principles of the goddess Fakhar, the father admitted that he was left alone with his loss and his limbs frozen in the cold. Therefore, he was worried that something might happen to his daughter. Ezebia promised that she would return if the storm arose and asked her father not to worry. She added that she was the princess and guardian of Arkai, so she was sure that their goddess would not harm her, but on the contrary, should tell her how to save the kingdom. The king suggested that perhaps the forest itself was calling her. He asked his daughter to take this thing with her. Ezebia asked what it was. The man explained that it is a pendant that can store heat. It was made by dwarves, and he bought it once for the queen. He expressed the hope that this jewel would help the girl. The princess made sure that the pendant kept the body warm. Ezebia thanked her father from the bottom of her heart. She firmly decided that she no longer wants to lose people dear to her heart. Therefore, she had to change her fate. The princess understood that there was only one way out. The knights did not understand what her highness was doing. That girl knew that, although she did not have so many magical powers, she remembered how to use them. She decided that she should use the only opportunity and connect with the trees of the forest. Ezebia shouted, "Does anyone hear her?" and asked to give her a sign. She demanded communication with the Silver Forest. Standing on her knees, the princess begged to be let into the forest. The knights noticed that the weather was deteriorating and a blizzard was beginning. Ezebia soon reported that the forest seemed to have heard her. She asked the guards to wait for her here. The princess went deeper and noticed that it was much colder in the slums, and the cold penetrated to the bones. Soon, she heard someone calling her name and calling her his child. Her highness saw silver leaves and decided that it was a forest. A voice told the girl that they had finally met again and asked what brought her here. The princess thought the voice was too familiar. She mentally noted that when she heard this voice, it was as if she was returning to the past. Ezebia turned to the Silver Forest and asked permission if she could ask why she was brought back to life. She wondered what she had to do to prevent the terrible end she so feared. She said she would keep any promise. She begged to be given the necessary amount of power to save Archaea and promised to fulfill any will of the forest. The Silver Forest said to Ezebia that she seemed to have misunderstood everything. He watched her all this time. The voice added that he had not heard her pray, for it was a privilege only for kings, and she knew it. The princess agreed, but said that she was sure that it was his voice that she heard. She admitted that she thought she had been resurrected to fulfill this promise. The voice advised Ezebia to go home, because her body was still too young and weak for such frosts. He added that the pendant would soon stop working, so she should return to her father. The princess said desperately that she didn't care. She screamed that she would rather die here than watch her people die, and she can't stop it. The girl continued to beg and say that she wanted to protect the country by herself. She asked what she had to do. The Silver Forest replied that she left him no choice. He noted that although she is a keeper, she does not have much strength, because he himself has already run out of strength. The goddess admitted that she was partly to blame for the princess's difficult past. Therefore, she was willing to share her life force with her so that she could save Archaea's future. The princess asked if she had heard about the life force, but at that moment, the girl heard another voice behind her, which said that the goddess cannot be trusted. The voice said that now Ezebia has become strong and nothing can stop her, so she should follow the call of her heart and everything will work out for her. The girl heard an unpleasant thing, as if a tragic end was prepared for her anyway, just like last time. Her highness emphatically said not this time. She accepted her fate and was ready for anything. Ezebia added that she was tired of being afraid. The guards at the entrance to the kingdom were very surprised by what they saw. One servant remarked to another that he should be more attentive on guard duty, even if it was quiet. But then the man heard someone addressing him and saying that nothing would be hidden from him, Before him appeared Her Highness, the grace of the goddess Fakar, Ezebia Ketteril, 20 years old. The young man told the princess that after closing the border, the number of victims was much lower. She admitted that she was happy because she managed to help. The interlocutor said that this is very well said. He explained that the thorn vine protected the wall well, and the arrows and shields it created provided excellent protection against monsters. The young man admitted that it seems strange to him, but he feels as if they are comrades in arms, as if they went through the whole war together. Ezebia repeated the word war and remembered those terrible events of the past. She told the boy that he was smarter than he seemed. 10 years have passed since the heroine returned to the past. The maid was telling the princess that it was time for her to go to bed. The girl replied that she needed a little more time. The silver forest made her height stronger, and she gained the ability to accelerate the growth of plants. She also learned how to make barriers against monsters and arrows imbued with magic. But it was not time to relax yet. Already in this life, terrible rumors about Emperor Riadon reached the princess. Her Highness saw that they were expanding the borders too quickly and would soon come to her kingdom. She was aware that the army had become much stronger under her leadership, but was still too weak to face Cana. Ezebia was determined to fight and was not going to give up. The attendant caught up with the princess and her interlocutor and informed them that they had urgent news. A letter from the Empire, from Emperor Cana himself. The princess was ready to do anything for the sake of saving the country, even to marry this person. The young man began to read the contents of the letter, which contained only one demand. Her Highness's advisors were beside themselves with rage, and that he should so easily ask for her hand and heart. They shouted that they would not give the princess to this savage. Ezebia realized that these people easily got rid of her in her past life, and now they protect her in this way because they know that she can be useful. But she also realized that the only thing that had not changed from that life was Kanak's extortion. He was a slave who became an emperor. The heroine reflected that his past life was even more complicated than hers. But I wondered, maybe because of this he became so cruel. The girl quickly dismissed these thoughts and agreed that it was none of her business. She asked the men their opinion. Could their army stand up to the empire? Elder brother Dietrich admitted to Her Highness that there is nothing more terrible than sending his own sister to foreign lands. He added that he is the king of Arkai, so he must put the country first. Ezebia noted that his words were so nice, but really he wanted to get rid of her. The young man turned to his sister and reminded her that she was the guardian of their country. Ezebia agreed to this and admitted that she had been waiting for this opportunity all her life. A week passed. Dietrich greeted Ezebia. The girl asked her brother what he was doing here so late. The brother asked her not to be too rude because he just wanted to say goodbye before leaving. He added that they won't see each other again soon, so she should be nicer to her family. The princess said that it was better to get down to business right away. Dietrich dropped the pendant on the table. The princess asked what kind of necklace it is. The brother replied that it was not just a necklace and noted that she had fine taste. He explained that it is a crystal of communication, thanks to which you can establish a connection at a distance, and asked the girl to take it with her. He also asked her to tell him everything she could find out about the emperor. Ezebia asked if he really wanted to make her a spy and clarified why, because this marriage is one of the conditions of the peace treaty. Dietrich replied that this condition was only in words, but in fact it was a good opportunity to buy time and prepare. The princess objected that if the emperor found out about it, it could get even worse and war would start. The prince called his sister naive. He explained that they were already preparing for war, which is why he came to her. The heroine was shocked to hear about the preparations for the war. Dietrich said that they are waiting for the moment when the empire will weaken, and they have already created an alliance with the northern countries. He added that it was necessary to kill Kanak, then it would be much easier to win. Besides, they already had a strong enough ally. Ezebia regretted in her mind why she hadn't realized all this earlier, because Dietrich had not just gotten these magical items. She knew that it took magical power to create such items. It came to the heroine that her brother had mixed up with those people again, but he is trying to create a northern alliance, which will lead to chaos on the entire continent. Dietrich asked his sister to comment on something. The princess thought that if she refused him, he would kill her and start a war anyway. Therefore, she was looking for another way to change her fate. The heroine was sure that her abilities would be enough to stop Dietrich. But now she was tormented by the question, could the future not be changed? Dietrich asked Ezebia, did she really think that marriage with Kanak would solve all their problems? He called her stupid and said that he had not thought of her being so stupid. The sister asked what he meant. The prince asked to read her papers and noted that they were classified, but he brought them just for her. The young man said that the guardians of Arkai had only one fate in store. He explained that the guardian's blessing inevitably imposed the burden of serving the northern forest. Dietrich told his sister that she would not be able to use her powers outside of the kingdom, and that magic could not be passed down through descendants either. He also added that the Silver Forest had made Ezebia childless. The heroine shouted that it was all a lie. The prince insisted that this was true and clarified that only the king had access to the archive, and these papers were hidden in a secret library. The brother told the sister to imagine Kana's disappointment when he learns that his wife cannot bear children. Dietrich continued and suggested that the emperor would be furious with anger and burn Archaea. The girl shouted that she did not want to listen to anything else, because he was lying. The prince suggested that she think for herself, because the documents never mentioned the children of the guardians. But the princess shouted again that he was lying. But at the same time, Ezebia had doubts, and if all this is true, can she just sit and wait for the tragic end? The servant told the master that he should not go without armor, because there are many robbers in the forest. The young man told the worker to shut up and better give him the clothes. He was worried that he could not meet the princess in this form. The maid warned the princess that it was cool on the balcony and she might catch a cold. The girl replied that she needed to breathe fresh air. The maid asked Her Highness why she looked so bad on her wedding day. Had she had a rough night? That night when the brother left, he finally said that she should think about everything. Ezebia spent a lot of time in the archives of Arkai searching for information. And indeed, she understood that there was not a single word about the children of the guardians. It was known that all magicians give birth to children with abilities. The heroine speculated why the Riadan Empire so wanted her as their empress. They wanted a descendant with magical features. But guardians are different from ordinary magicians. Their magic is a blessing from the Silver Forest, and they are not born with it. Ezebia thought that Dietrich was right, and that all guardians could not have children. She was worried about what she should do now, because as soon as the emperor finds out about this, the peace treaty will be immediately broken. Her Highness heard the announcement from below that Emperor Riadan had arrived on the kingdom's territory to form a marriage alliance. She realized with horror that it was him. The princess gave the order to open the gates of the kingdom and receive the ruler with honors. Canuck Riadan presented himself to Ezebia. The heroine continued to think about what to do next, because this marriage is short-lived, and she will not be able to prevent the invasion of Canuck. The girl forced herself to think. Ezebia remembered that last night Dietrich had used her for his own purposes, instead of killing her like he had in that life. He even told her the truth about the guardians. She thought that he must consider her an important and necessary pawn in his game. The heroine decided that as long as she was useful, he would not get rid of her so easily. She had a plan to show it to the emperor as well, so one should reject frivolity. Ezebia mentally swore that he must not learn the secret of the keepers. Canuck Riadan came in and greeted Princess Ezebia. The girl replied that it was an honor for her to meet the emperor. The emperor noted that she was not very happy about their imminent marriage. Ezebia replied that everything was not so, because she accepted the wedding with the emperor with great happiness. The man replied that her lie was more pleasant than a kiss. The girl turned to His Highness and assured that she would never lie to him, and in response, he asked not to call him that. Kanash clarified that he does not like all these manners, and it is better to address him simply by his name. The princess apologized and said she had to follow the rules. She wondered what had happened and began to remember. Had he treated her like this in a past life? The emperor suggested that he address her by name and that she do the same. The heroine was very surprised, because in her past life, Canuck Riadan did not even visit her before their wedding. The young man turned to the girl and called her simply Ezebia. Kana asked if she didn't know his name. The girl confidently answered that of course she knew. Ezebia pronounced his name Canuck out loud. The maid admitted that the princess looked simply beautiful. Her Highness asked the girl Cecile to stop and wipe away her tears. Cecilia said that it hurts her to watch this forced wedding. But she added that the princess deserves a more luxurious dress. Ezebia thought that compared to what she had been married in her previous life, this outfit was simply gorgeous. The maid threw herself at the feet of the princess and begged her not to go. But she assured her that everything will be fine because this is just a wedding, not a battlefield. But at the same time, the girl understood that risking her life and going to live in another country is no joke. She was aware that her future husband was using her to get an offspring that would have magical abilities. She believed that she could protect her people only if she gave the emperor what he expected. Ezebia thought, are they really now husband and wife? The priest said that in the name of the goddess Fakar, the keeper of the beginning and the end, he laments their spouses. But in the thoughts of the bride at that time was that the army of the enemy would still come to the battlefield. The priest added that now let the kiss cement their union. Ezebia noted that he looked the same as he did back then. She noticed that there was no blemish on his face. The heroine remembered that then he seemed like a god to her. But after everything she saw in the war, she no longer feels a thrill in her chest. For herself, she decided a long time ago that this is not marriage, but only a means to achieve peace, so she does not care how he will behave with her. The kiss turned out to be quite passionate, but the princess could not find words. Finally, she asked him to stop. Ezebia persuaded herself that her heart would not beat more often anyway. Kanak asked his young wife if everything was okay with her. The princess mentally noted that this time there was no wedding commotion. She thought they were in even more of a hurry now. Communication necklace, given by her brother, lit up around her neck. Ezebia heard Dietrich's voice telling her that she had made the right choice and that her decision would help save Arkaya. The girl thought it sounded too depressing. But suddenly, behind her, she heard Kanak's voice, who noticed that the young wife was having a hard time right now. The heroine was embarrassed and turned to the young man as to his highness. She was very worried that he would find out about her infertility if they did not have children after a few years. She also understood that then their plan with Dietrich would fail. Kana said he would go with her. Out of surprise, Ezebia apologized and asked again. He explained that he knew about the rules that a bride and groom could not ride in the same carriage, but he added that he was worried, so he could not leave her alone. Kanak knelt down and said he would climb into the carriage after the girl. He again asked her to climb into the carriage and not make the emperor kneel. Ezebia felt strange sensations again, because everything was completely different than in the past life. She reflected that he had visited her even before the wedding, and now he was completely down on his knees. The heroine persuaded herself to remain indifferent, but still a strange feeling did not leave her. She was worried and did not understand what this would all lead to. It could be both a good sign and a bad one. In the carriage, Kanak asked Ezebia if she was still sad, the girl asked. He continued to ask if she might be feeling unwell, or if she really wanted to escape from an unwanted engagement. The princess cried out that these questions and assumptions were ridiculous. She explained that now she is the emperor's wife, so she must fulfill her duties. Kanak asked about duties and clarified whether all princesses are so devoted, duty to kiss a man she did not like. He also wanted to know what was the matter. Ezebia asked if he thought she hated him. Kanak said that he has long wanted to ask what he looks like to her. The princess managed to answer that for her Emperor Riadan is a real hero. She added that she had heard stories about him even before the wedding, and she had also heard about his origins. The young man replied that he was fine with rumors about him behind his back. It was her opinion that was important to him. He asked who he was to Ezebia. He wondered if she could consider him a hero. The girl started to answer, but immediately stopped. She remembered his face from the war in her past life. Ezebia again tried to answer who he was for her, but stopped again. The emperor said that he thought so, and that they are already married, but she continues to be wary of him. He remembered that after the marriage ceremony, she looked very pale, like snow. With regret, Kanak said that his guesses turned out to be true, and this marriage. Ezebia made up her mind that she would not allow him to break their union. The heroine began to make excuses, and said that the point is not that she is not happy about their marriage. Kanak ordered her to return to her seat immediately, as she might fall if they stopped abruptly. Suddenly the carriage tilted, and the coachman started shouting. Ezebia was also unable to stand on her feet, and while falling, she began to scream. Kanak caught the young wife and asked if she had not been hit. He saw the alarm on the girl's face and asked if she was feeling well. Ezebia replied that everything is fine, and again turned to the man as to his highness. The emperor asked the coachman, why did they stop? The young man replied that a tree had fallen and asked for forgiveness. He added that their people are already cleaning the road and will soon move on. Kanak noted that when they drove to Arkay, the tree was still standing. He saw that something strange was happening to Ezebia and called out to her. The princess remembered Dietrich's words that the power is given to the guardians of the Silver Forest and does not work outside of Arkay. She was sure that it was all a lie, but the girl felt that her strength was leaving her, so she decided that everything was so. She worried that she wouldn't be able to defend herself without magic, especially if she was attacked. Ezebia assumed that her brother had specially sent her out of the country. A voice behind him confirmed that Dietrich planned all this to get rid of his sister and start a war. The princess shouted that enough is enough, but the voice continued and said that poor Ezebia will die again because she is doomed to suffering. The princess cried and begged to stop. Kanak advised Azebia to take a breath and calm down. He assured his wife that she was safe. He confidently added that no one would harm her here. The princess rested on his chest, and they continued on their way. Suddenly she heard Kanak admit that he was sorry. He explained that he had been acting intolerable all day, which must have made their journey even more difficult. The emperor added that in this way he tried to draw attention to himself, because the girl did not look at him at all. He admitted that he knew about her negative attitude towards this marriage, but the reality is not so easy to accept. Kanak turned to the girl and assured her that he would not break off the engagement under any circumstances. He also swore to the princess that henceforth there would always be peace between their countries. The young man asked her not to look at him with such fear in her eyes. Azebia seems to have understood why he is now so different from the one from the past life. She remembered that then they were not even left alone and did not talk. Therefore, she had no desire to get to know him better. The princess said she was not lying when she heard of his past merits. Even before the wedding, the heroine began to study the archive related to Kanak in order to learn the weak points of the enemy. But the more she learned about him, the more she doubted whether he was the Kana she knew before. According to the data, he is a former slave who fought for freedom against a past despotic emperor. Azebia admitted that she is not afraid of her husband and is happy about their engagement. She thanked Kana for helping her calm down. The princess reminded him that he had asked to be called by his first name and asked if that was valid. The emperor also addressed his wife by name, but suddenly His Highness was informed that the pier was already visible. Azebia fell to the window in surprise and watched in silence. She decided that the future had changed. In her mind, the princess noted that she did not die, as in her past life, and the war between the empires was over. But it also worried her, because from now on the future is a mystery to her. The princess said that everything would be fine, she could feel it. One of the men suggested that the wedding ceremony ended too quickly. Another replied that it was unlikely that the emperor ran away immediately after taking the oath, since he had only been talking about the wedding with the princess for a whole month. The same man informed the lord that the emperor's carriage had left the forest. He was very surprised. The gentleman smiled ironically and said that he wondered who the princess was pretending to be. The princess got out of the carriage and was surprised to see a large ship. Kanak explained that a normal ship would not be able to handle the journey they had to make. He warned the girl to look under her feet, because it is easy to fall in the dark. Azebia replied that he was too worried and assured her that she was keeping a good eye on the road. But suddenly the heroine's leg turned up and she screamed. She found herself in her husband's arms again. The princess thanked her and agreed that she really needed to be more careful. Kanak offered to help her. Azebia replied that she could come alone, but the emperor insisted because she could turn her leg. The young man he met said that a strange picture had opened before him. Kanak was surprised and addressed the stranger, calling him Aslan. The girl also mentioned Aslan Weiner. Aslan apologized for not introducing himself earlier. He greeted and said that Lord Aslan Weiner was at their service. He was the Minister of Internal Affairs of the Riadan Empire. It was known that Aslan Weiner was a man of humble origin and the son of an impoverished baron. Baron knew how to make money out of nothing. Life taught him to judge people not by their origin, but by their merits. It was this that allowed him to notice Kana, who was an ordinary slave. Aslan was a great strategist of the empire. It was he who led the revolutionary movement to victory. And then Kanak's position in Riadan was consolidated. Azebia remembered that his name was also mentioned in the archives she was studying. But the feeling that she was looking at a fictional character did not leave her. Aslan asked if there was anything he could do to help. Azebia refused, and Kanak clarified that Aslan was not only his close friend, but also the Minister of Internal Affairs. He added that such acquaintances will not get in the way. In response, the princess also introduced herself and called herself Azebia Ketteril, and then changed to Azebia Riadan. She said she was glad to meet Mr. Aslan. Kanak asked, "Isn't it time for them to go to the ship?" The husband insisted that his wife give him a hand. The heroine replied that she would handle it herself. Kanak clarified that she almost fell recently, and the princess began to make sweet excuses. Aslan watched their dialogue in silence. He thought to himself that it was interesting to watch the emperor take care of the new empress. Azebia was worried that it was a stupid tone for her to call the emperor by his first name in front of the servants. Kanak publicly clarified that she is his wife. Therefore, she has every right to address him simply by name. Aslan addressed His Highness and warned that decency must be preserved at all costs. Kanak replied that this does not sound very convincing from a person who calls him only by his first name. The princess listened to both men argue and reproach each other and decided that it was already turning into a conflict. She remembered the past events and thought that Kanak had calmed down a bit when he noticed that she was sick. He also got excited when she almost fell. The girl decided that maybe he was the kind of person who only showed his care when they were alone. Ezebia called her husband's name. She reported that she was not feeling well and asked if she could lie down to rest. Kanak questioned and began to blame himself for not noticing it earlier himself. He said that he would take the girl to the cabin. The princess replied that it is not necessary to carry her in her arms. Aslan and his men watched everything thoughtfully. Ezebia continued to scream to be let go. Kanak brought his wife and told her that this was her cabin. He asked her to let him know if she needed anything. The man wanted to make sure that the girl was just sick and asked if she had a temperature because she was all red. Ezebia replied that everything is fine. The princess thought that this was a ridiculous situation. She was very surprised when she saw the dress. The girl asked if it was for her? The emperor was worried. Didn't she like it? The wife happily reported that she really likes the shade of green. She regretfully thought that no one had ever given her such wonderful gifts before. Ezebia said that she wanted to see the person who had prepared such an elegant dress for her. Kanak replied that it was not necessary. The young man clarified that this person was him. The wife thanked him and said that she would be careful with him. Kanak replied that it was unnecessary because it was only the whole dress. The emperor told her to rest, and he would return when he had finished some of his business. Ezebia excitedly asked in what sense he would return. The man replied that she understood everything correctly because they are husband and wife. He wondered if they shouldn't sleep in the same bed. The heroine was mentally confused because she did not take this fact into account. She wondered if they would sleep together in the same bed from this day on. Ezebia was worried that he wanted to spend this night in the same room with her. She well remembered that he married her for the sake of the offspring, so it was inevitable. The heroine still hoped that he would postpone this moment until he arrived in the empire, and now he would engage in military affairs. The princess wondered why he was in such a hurry. Was she really so desirable to him? She was worried that sooner or later he would figure out that she couldn't bear him a child, even if he found her so attractive now. Kanak took his wife's face in his hands and called her by name. The husband reassured his wife and said that sleeping in the same bed does not mean that it is a wedding night. He added that now she is not only an empress, but also a wife in the first place, so sleeping in different beds is a wrong thing on the first night of marriage. Kana assured her that he would not force her under any circumstances. The heroine promised that she would do everything to make him happy, but Kanak suddenly announced that he did not want to do anything on the ship at night. In addition, he admitted that he considers it terrible to go to bed with someone who does not want it. So he said he would wait until she was ready. Ezebia was surprised and asked why he said that, because she thinks that he is very much waiting for an heir. The emperor joked in response that it was their first night and his wife was already trying to consolidate the empire's position, which was why he was so lucky with her. He added that he was in no hurry, so he asked her to at least pretend that she loved him if she was so eager to give him an heir. Kanak expressed the hope that true love will emerge between them, despite the fact that this is primarily a political union. The emperor was sitting in his office and Ezebia was not on his mind. He remembered their recent conversation about the heir and decided that things had turned out to be a little more complicated. But the husband decided that it would be even better if she did not remember the past. So they will be able to start with a clean slate. Aslan interrupted his thoughts. The young man burst into the office and started shouting that he heard the emperor sending their soldiers to defend the borders of Arkai. He was angry that he had not agreed with anyone. Kanak explained that the people of Arkai were left without a guardian, so they had to make up for the loss. The minister said that this political union is meaningless. Aslan was shouting that they were better at everything, and what was stopping them from taking over an entire nation? He accused the emperor of sacrificing the lives of the best soldiers for the sake of a pampered princess. Kanak made a remark to Aslan to watch his words. The emperor declared that Ezebia is not a spoiled princess, but for her sake he is ready to give everything and even more. He added that he has no regrets for her. The minister shouted that this could not be and asked if something hit the emperor on the head. Kanak ordered him to get out of here because it was getting suffocating. Aslan shouted, "Is he really suffocating? Because it is, on the contrary, freezing here?" He did not understand what was happening to His Highness. Ezebia woke up and felt unwell. She speculated that it might be because her guardian powers were leaving her. She decided that it was impossible for Kanak to find out that she no longer had any powers. The girl decided to ask the servant to bring the medicine because it was necessary to behave with dignity. Ezebia knocked on the door and asked if anyone was there because she needed any medicine. That someone turned out to be Kanach, who was very surprised. Why did his wife need medicine? He asked if she was not well. Her Highness replied that she simply had a headache. The emperor noticed that this was not true because she was very pale and decided to send for a doctor. The girl felt dizzy and felt a pain in her stomach, although she remembered that she hadn't even eaten anything. Moments later, Ezebia vomited right in front of the young man and onto his shirt. The princess panicked at what she had just done. Kaina again asked her permission to call the doctor. Ezebia did not answer, so he addressed her by name. The girl began to apologize and said that she did not want this. The princess panicked. What should she do now? Because everything was not going so well from the very beginning, and now she also ruined his clothes. She thought that he must be very angry with her and even think about breaking off the engagement. Again, that voice behind her began to tell her that she was doing everything wrong and that she was wrong every time. Ezebia heard the terrible thing that she had already lost her magic, and that was the only thing the emperor needed from her. Therefore, if she makes mistakes, she will pay dearly for it. The heroine said that she was very sorry for what had happened and promised to clean up here immediately. Kanak replied that it was none of her concern, but the girl insisted because she was the one who soiled his things. The emperor took off his shirt and said that now the problem was solved. He explained that he would just put on clean clothes as if nothing had happened and asked her not to blame herself for such a small thing. Ezebia admitted that she was afraid to upset His Highness. Kanak asked why he should be upset. The emperor added that he was not so heartless as to condemn a man suffering from seasickness. The princess asked in surprise about seasickness. He asked if the girl was sailing on a ship for the first time. Kanak suggested that it was necessary to create more suitable conditions so that such trifles did not spoil anyone's mood. The young man admitted that it reminded him of his days on the battlefield, when he found himself in a new place every day. He said that then he met a person who persuaded him to join the ranks of the revolutionaries. Kanak remembered that he was a terrible scoundrel who had sworn to serve him until the end of his days. The emperor reported that one day they came across the body of a slain soldier. He asked Ezebia to guess who it was about. The man said that the snitch was Aslan. The wife asked if it was Aslan Weinar. Kanak admitted that instead of apologizing, he accused him of intentionally going down the road with the bodies. The princess said she couldn't believe it. She added that she couldn't believe that he was so delicate. The emperor continued and reported that in a few years, he had stopped being such a crybaby. He reassured the princess and said that time has put everything in its place, so after a while, this misunderstanding will be erased from her memory. Ezebia wondered if he thinks the same way about his past, that it is also just a drop in the ocean. The girl caught herself thinking that she would like to get to know the real Kanach, because, probably, life has taken a toll on him. The doctor was running on the deck and shouting that he was late. The young man knocked on the door and asked His Highness for permission to enter. The emperor noted that he was here at last. Ezebia asked if they were waiting for someone. The man replied that he had sent for a doctor. Kanak made a remark to the doctor to do his work faster. The young man replied that he just wanted to make sure that he had taken everything he needed with him. The emperor said that there were enough excuses and remarked that the empress needed him. The young man introduced himself and said that he was an imperial physician named Simon. The princess thought, "Is this really what the doctor of the empire Riadan looks like?" Simon asked Her Highness if she was troubled by anything. Ezebia realized that she had been staring at him too much. The girl greeted and informed Simon that her name was Ezebia, and she was the princess of Arkai and the new empress of the Riadan Empire. She thanked the young man for coming at such an early hour. The doctor replied that he was always at her service. Kanak got angry and accused Simon that while he was away, the princess was suffering. He asked what was bothering her. Ezebia intervened and said that she was much better now. She asked the man not to pressure the young man like that. The emperor replied that disorder leads to bad consequences. Kanak again pushed the young doctor to get to work sooner. Upon inspection, Simon noticed that the princess was trembling and decided that she was afraid of Kana. Ezebia asked the young man, "How old is he?" He replied that he was turning 18 this year. The princess noted that he was the same age as her younger brother. She assumed that he is still so young and already serves as an imperial physician, so he must be a real professional in his field. Simon replied that he still had a lot to learn. Ezebia replied that she did not believe him, because the emperor would not trust a bad specialist. She asked Kaina if she was right. Kanak replied that Simon is very smart and he will only need one time to remember something. He added that he made him an imperial physician in the hope that one day he would be needed, because not everyone can learn the structure of the human body in such a short time. Ezebia reassured Simon and said that His Highness liked him after all, so he needn't worry so much. The doctor shyly replied sarcastically that he did not have as many talents as people said about him. He promised to do everything in his power. Kanak watched the painting, and the girl thanked Simon and said that they were not afraid of anything when he was around. When the young man left, the emperor admitted that Simon is a good guy and behaves very modestly in the company of unfamiliar people, but still he was able to show himself well. The princess replied that it was good. Kanak wondered why this was good. Ezebia explained that she knew she had to get to know his inner circle and asked what was wrong. The man asked, "Is holding Simon's hand really an acquaintance?" The heroine mentally assumed that he was upset. She thought that he probably wanted his wife to keep her distance from other men and apologize. Kanak replied that she didn't have to apologize, but he wasn't going to scold her. Ezebia admitted that Simon reminded her of her brother, and she could not close her eyes to his feelings. She decided to explain to him about the hand. The princess remembered how he then hugged her in the carriage and clarified that a gentle touch can help in moments of great tension and excitement. But in the future, she promised to monitor her actions more closely. Kanak listened in silence. In the next moment, the emperor called the girl by name. He gave her something to taste, and the girl asked what it was. Kanak explained that this will help remove the bitter aftertaste of the medicine. Ezebia exclaimed in delight that it was a candied raspberry, and she simply adored it. The emperor told his wife that she could eat as much as she wanted, because he still had plenty of it. Ezebia replied that she did not limit herself, but the man denied that she had even swallowed a berry that he had given her. He compared her to a rabbit, which shamelessly chews lettuce leaves. Kanak added that it was already late, and he should go to bed. He assured his wife that the medicine Simon had given her would soon work. The wife asked, "And how is he?" The man replied that he still needed to look at some documents. She asked if he would go. Kanak replied that he had brought all the papers here because he could not leave her alone. The man suggested that Ezebia rest, and he would look after her. The princess lay there and thought that he did not deceive her, and really did not go anywhere. In her mind, she noted that he does not care about the lack of manners, and he very carefully takes care of her and her health. The heroine wondered if he really wanted to love her like a real woman. Kanak also hoped for true love if this marriage could bring peace to the two peoples. But the elder brother Dietrich told Ezebia not to even dream of such a thing. The girl was worried that she would not be able to give an heir to Kanak, and that he would get rid of her. She suspected that his generosity and kindness might turn into cruelty. But in one moment, she stopped her thoughts, because she is here to save Arkaya in the first place. The heroine thought that maybe she should make him understand that all this is for fun. Early in the morning, Ezebia woke up and shouted that he was gone. The frightened maid asked the princess if she really wanted to go out. Maybe she still needed to rest. The girl assured them not to worry about her, because after sleeping she felt much better. She added that this was her first trip on a ship, so she would be sorry to stay in the cabin all day. The princess went out on deck and noted with delight how the sea looked. She heard them calling her and saying good morning. Behind her were young workers, whom she thanked for their conscientious work. The heroine noticed that Oslin had the same expression last night and decided that they were afraid of her. She mentally noted that there is nothing strange here, because for them she is just a stranger. Ryadan is a young empire, so Kanak does not need the magic of Arkaya at all, but a young wife who will give him many useful acquaintances and connections. But Kanak here disappointed his subordinates when he decided to marry a foreign princess from a crumbling country. Therefore, Ezebia decided that they were afraid of her, if not even hated. She was worried because she had never encountered such a thing before. In Arkaya, magicians are treated with respect, but here she is afraid to even think about what they might do to her. Suddenly, a frightened Simon appeared and said that he was looking everywhere for Her Majesty. Ezebia hastened to calm the young man and said that everything was fine and that his medicine had worked. The young man replied that it was cool today, so she shouldn't stay on the deck for long. The young doctor could not get Kana's words out of his head that his disorder would not go unnoticed. The next moment the emperor came up, who said that he was looking for the princess because she was not in the cabin and offered to return. The wife shouted for the husband to let her go, but he replied that he was worried about her because the ship was rocking a lot. Ezebia said that the emperor's servants would not like his actions towards her. Kanak replied that all these manners were now unimportant. The heroine said that he is the main role model, so taking a woman in his arms like this and just walking away is ugly on his part. Kanak admitted to Ezebia that there was something he should have told him sooner. He added that it was for this reason that he was in such a hurry to take the throne. The man clarified that he wanted to change everything, namely to build a new free country, and people will not depend on the rules of etiquette. He advised his young wife not to depend on the opinion of his subordinates, because his servants had learned to accept him as he was, and there were no other people around. Ezebia saw some strange books and asked what they were. Kanak replied that while she slept, he had brought some books, because there was nothing to do in the cabin. The wife was very surprised and asked, "Are there really books here?" The man replied that there is nowhere without them on distant sea voyages, and specified that these books should be taken from the palace library. He asked, "Maybe the girl does not like to read?" But she answered that she loves. The heroine clarified that she always tries to read when she has a free minute, but recently she's had a lot to do. Kanak suggested that in that case they could read together. Ezebia noted in her mind that Riadan was an amazing empire. She also noticed that these books were quite rare and well cared for. She remembered hearing that the palace has the largest library and connected it with Kanak's love for books. The heroine caught herself thinking that the more she gets to know him, the more he reveals himself. She had always considered him only a salesman and not a person who would sit behind a book. She noticed the expression on his face when he was thinking about something. The heroine remembered that in her past life, reading was her favorite pastime. There was no one to talk to in the palace, so she distracted herself in this way and tried to immerse herself in other people's thoughts. But now she knew what it was like to have a person next to you who could share your love of books with you. She dreamed that life in the empire would be so peaceful. The girl did not notice how she fell asleep, and Kanak began to wake her up. She asked what happened. The man said that the ship had arrived at the port and that they would soon enter the palace. When the husband and wife were riding in a carriage to the palace, the girl asked if he didn't need to prepare in order to appear in public with dignity. She clarified that he is still returning with a foreign princess, and his subordinates are waiting for this moment. Kanak replied that in a few days there will be a public performance. That's when they will see everything. The emperor added that if possible, he would like to present his wife after the official ceremony in the capital. After all, what happened in Archaea was only a formality. The man clarified that the official ceremony would cement her position as the emperor's wife. The carriage drove to the imperial palace, where the workers greeted their highness. The girl worker introduced herself and said that she was Mariana, the head of the household. She told the ladies that they had created all the necessary conditions for her comfortable stay. Ezebia thanked Marianne. The worker offered to show the young empress the palace so that she could get used to it better. Ezebia mentally noted that the atmosphere in the palace testified to the wealth and prosperity of the empire. It was not at all surprising to her that Archaea had been defeated in her past life, because they had underestimated Cana and had not studied the enemy well. The girl saw the building through the window and said that it looked a little different. Mariana clarified that the building was an annex to the palace and suggested that Madame take a look. Ezebia was amazed, because it looked exactly like the palace in Archaea. The princess replied that she would inspect the annex later, because now she wanted to continue the tour of the palace. Marianne replied that it would be as Her Majesty said, and added that the entire wing of the second floor was prepared for their future children. Next, the maid showed the empress's bedroom and informed her that she would sleep here. Ezebia was amazed and admitted that it was too pompous for her. Marianne said that they had prepared a bath for Her Highness, because there is nothing better than a bath after a long journey. The worker also added that she would ask the servants if everything was ready for tonight. Ezebia fearfully revised what she meant by tonight. The girl brightened when she heard what was meant. It turns out that preparations were underway, because today, the emperor and empress will spend the night in the palace for the first time. Cana came by and said that the room had changed a bit while he was doing work. The wife replied that all the servants, including Mariana, did everything to make this night memorable for them. Kanak said that now he understood why his wife was wearing a shirt. Ezebia was agitated and asked if it was too frank. The man replied that it suits her very well. He added that he promised he wouldn't touch her until she was ready, but now that he saw her like this, the girl was silent, but there were many questions in her eyes. The emperor told her to forget it and suggested that she must be tired so they could go to bed now. Ezebia apologized and admitted that she was not very knowledgeable in all these matters. Kanak replied that he himself was not a professional. The man added that he had not yet had intimacy with a woman either. Then he asked why his wife was so surprised by such a confession. She replied that he is the emperor and should take care of the continuation of the family. Cana asked if she wanted a more experienced man. He explained that it was difficult to do anything about it, and he couldn't just go and learn everything. The girl said that she was just surprised to hear this, that's all, The man said that the problem did not go away, but they both did not know what to do about it. He suggested that she practice a little. Ezebia was surprised and questioned. Kanak said that we should first hold hands. He added that next they should lie next to each other, and then how will it go? The heroine was worried and wondered what she should do. She asked to wait a moment and said that she was a little uncomfortable in the shirt. Ezebia said she would go change. Kanak yelled at her to stand still because there were buttons on the back. He asked permission to help if she didn't mind. The emperor touched his wife and once again asked if she allowed. The man unbuttoned the buttons and announced that everything was ready. Ezebia thanked His Highness. Kanak replied that he was welcome. He thought to himself that he never thought that one day he would have to unbutton buttons instead of a maid. The emperor asked Ezebia if she wanted to practice. The wife was silent and could not find the words to answer. Kanak said that when she is so far away, he can't even hold her hand. The heroine asked, "Is it really so?" The girl asked if it was convenient for him, because before that they just slept in different cabins. Kanak replied that he was in the same cabin with her during the trip. He clarified that while she slept, he sat in the chair next to her and admitted that at one point he only used his cabin to change clothes and shower. He remembered how once she even screamed and turned to her brother and said that she did not want to. The man assumed that she had nightmares every night. He asked if he had promised to be there until she fell asleep. Ezebia admitted that he was really a different person than she had imagined. She also said that she was even a little afraid of him before the wedding. She considered him a dangerous person because he became the emperor thanks to the revolution, which he himself arranged. The heroine added that she later realized that this was not true at all. She was afraid of what would happen if she didn't like him. Kanak said that he liked her very much, but he does not regret anything, especially their wedding. He added that now and later she is the right person for him. The girl said that it was all good because she liked him too. Still, she had thoughts that she shouldn't act on it because Kanak had once said that he needed her strength and their future children. In her mind, she decided that he liked the sorceress Ezebia and not her. In the morning, she saw the flowers on the table and remarked that it was very beautiful. Ezebia wondered who had put them up, maybe the maid of honor. Marianne asked Her Majesty if she had a good night. The girl greeted the elderly landlady. The princess suggested that perhaps thanks to the scented candles, she was able to sleep soundly through the night. Mariana thanked God and asked Madame if she needed anything now. Ezebia noticed that the maid addressed her very politely, but with some wariness, like everyone else. The girl immediately drove away these thoughts because now she has a lot of business in the empire. She asked Mariana to prepare a simple breakfast for her and said that she wanted to go somewhere after it. The maid asked where exactly she wanted to visit. The heroine replied that she wanted to go to the imperial library. Later, she entered the library hall and could not control her emotions. Ezebia declared that she had never seen so many books anywhere. The young man answered that even editions that were not officially published were collected here. He added that there are collections of legends and stories that were previously only retold. Ezebia asked, "Perhaps there are stories about sorcerers?" The young man replied that all the books about magic were in the secret section of the library. The man clarified that she can visit him at any time. The girl was happy. She asked if she could go there just now. The princess noticed that extremely rare books were kept in the secret department. She decided that there might be a key to the keeper's powers. The heroine paid attention to one book and assumed that it could be her. Ezebia knew that the heyday of magic was hundreds of years ago, so she thought that it would be extremely difficult to find information about it. She was very surprised that she immediately came across this particular book. The heroine heard that some races still use magic. That is why she decided that more information can be found about guardians than about ordinary magicians. More than 300 years ago, an evil army entered the land where people lived and began to threaten even the forest deity and his silver forest. And then a person from the Keteral family heard the call of the forest and came to help. And she swore to always protect the silver forest. Her devotion and bravery pleased the goddess Fakhar, and for this she gave the Keteral family divine power. Ezebia read that the keeper of the silver forest would never be able to live a simple human life and said that she already knew that information. But there was one person who devoted her life to the protection of the silver forest, who became an exception, Janessa Cathrall, the eternal friend of the forest elves. Hidden underground, the wood elves still missed Janessa, even after 100 years. Ezebia thought about Janessa Cathrall and remembered that she was a guardian over 300 years ago. But how could she still give birth to a child? The heroine also wondered what the eternal friend of the forest elves meant. She thought maybe she could learn more about Janessa if she met the elves. Ezebia was wondering where to find them when she heard someone call her name. She was surprised that it was Kanak, and he wondered why she was still here. He asked why she was skipping meals because she didn't want to pass out. The emperor declared that the ladies of the court were very upset because the new empress disappears from morning to evening and does not appear to anyone. Ezebia apologized to Kanak and explained that she had lost track of time while reading books. The husband asked that his wife not look at him like that because of her he is so much today. He tried to explain, but he never succeeded. The princess asked if he was angry with her. Kanak also apologized in response because he assumed that his words must have sounded too rude. He clarified that he is not angry that she spends a lot of time in the library. The emperor admitted that he was simply worried about her health and weakness. He added that he expected something like this to happen. The man admitted that because she liked to read so much, he should have taken that into account. Kanak opened the door and called his wife to come inside. Ezebia cried out in delight and asked what kind of place this was. Kanak replied that he thought he should show her the place to prove his genuine concern. Ezebia answered that it is very beautiful here and asked if he had planted flowers here as well. The heroine noted that they are very cute. The emperor asked if she likes flowers so much. The wife answered that yes, especially with small buds, because they can also be of different colors. The man admitted that he felt joy because he was able to impress the girl. Kanak warned her that when she goes somewhere to see something, she should definitely take food with her. He admitted that he had ordered more flowers to be planted around a special palace for her and suggested that it would be nice to walk around there. Kanak said that the special palace was built recently and stands alone. Ezebia remembered that she had not seen him before. She wondered if Kanak had built it especially for her, and that greenhouse too? The heroine did not want to deceive herself, but she wondered why he continued to care for her so much. She felt a tremor of her magic at this point and thought it was quite strange. Kanak asked Ezebia, "What is the matter?" The wife replied that everything is fine. She explained that this flower is very beautiful. The heroine thought that if she left the borders of Arche, she would not be able to use the power of her magic, but it turns out that she can still communicate with plants. She decided that while Kana wasn't looking, she could try to chat with the flower just a little. Suddenly, she heard a voice telling her to run from here immediately, because in that case she would die. She looked at Kana excitedly and did not understand what was happening. The man asked Ezebia, "What happened to her?" The heroine again heard a strange advice that if she does not run away from here now, she will die. A week later, two young people were walking in the park. The man asked the girl, "Did she think?" The girl replied that no matter how much he asked, she would not change her decision. The man said that she was too harsh and needed to be kinder. The girl shouted back that she was always proud of her profession. The stranger declared that pride was a good thing and asked if her job was more important than her sister. The girl answered how he found out, and he recommended to think carefully because fulfilling his request is not so difficult. The man clarified that he only needed her to report to him about everything the empress was doing and saying. The girl wanted to deny. He added that if she still came back here, it means that she was interested in his proposal. The stranger expressed confidence that they can be good friends and asked what the girl's answer was. The girl's name was Marianne. After talking with the mustachioed man, Marianne had a lot to think about. She visited her sick sister. The girl promised to visit her relative more often and apologized for this, because there is a lot of work in the palace now. She asked her sister Edith to take the medicine first. Marianne remembered the conversation when she was asked if her younger sister had multiple sclerosis, such a bad, incurable disease. The man said then that he knew very well about this disease. He added that she is the bane of their empire, which is isolated from everything. Interlocutor Marianne stated that if one does not take the potion, which constantly finds magical powers, the patient will die, and his body will turn to stone. He added that in a world where there are few sorcerers, the price of such medicines has become simply cosmic. The man continued to persuade Marianne to cooperate with them, because then they would be able to give her a lot of money. The girl asked, "Who does he mean with himself?" Vusak replied that he would tell her the details only if she agreed to his proposal. He asked to consider everything in more detail once again. Marianne remembered this conversation and wondered why he needed all this. Oslin, the Minister of the Interior of the Empire, brought His Highness the tax calculations for the western part of the country for the first quarter. He added that he also made several proposals for the reform of the tax system and invited Kanak to read them if he wished. He thanked in return. The emperor noted that at this rate, proposals for reforms will be ready for the next meeting. Oslin replied that this time the meeting would be more serious. He added that aristocrats, who are conservative, will not allow a tax reform to be carried out, They will support the preservation of old customs. The man suggested that if they refuse them the reform plan, they will later fail the document check. Aslan commented that they still believe that aristocrats should rule the world. Kanak said that it was they who allowed someone like him to take the throne, although it was not permission, but a real surrender. He understood that now they could betray at any moment, because then with such shame they had to surrender. The emperor admitted that if it weren't for the money of these old vipers, who still help support the empire, he would have finished with them a long time ago, as he did with the previous emperor. Aslan said that he knew that Kanak would never do such a thing, even though he was very powerful. Kanak asked, "What does this power even mean?" But he added that he simply did not want anyone's blood to be spilled in the empire. Kanak remembered Azebia's confession that she liked him too. The emperor wondered if she knew all he had been through. Would she also consider him a hero? A maid came into the conservatory and commented that the empress was still here. Marianne said she heard her name being called. The maid behaved quite discreetly and remained silent. Azebia said there was something she would like to know. Marianne asked if the princess wanted to tell her something. The girl suggested a walk. Azebia clarified that this conversation would be too long to stand in one place. She asked, "Isn't the weather warm today?" The maid agreed about the weather. The empress said that she was very surprised when she first got to the winter garden. She admitted that she had never seen such flowers before. She did not expect that she could communicate with plants so far from home. The heroine remembered how last time the flowers told her that she should leave here immediately, because then she might die. Then that strange voice told her that one woman close to her was dangerous, and she was constantly meeting with some people. The plants said that these people were discussing how to harm the empress. Azebia assumed that this woman could be Marian, and wondered what she could be negotiating with them. The girl asked permission from the plants to look at their memories. They agreed and assured her that they were on her side. Some pictures of the maid's conversation with that mustached man opened up in front of her. The heroine mentally drew conclusions and understood how everything happened. Marianne called Her Majesty, and she apologized and said she was distracted by the flowers. Azebia asked the worker if she likes flowers. The girl answered that, of course, yes, they are beautiful. Her Majesty sounded surprised, and Marianne clarified that she definitely did not hate them. She remembered her sister, who often said that they were very beautiful creatures and so easy to lose. The maid admitted to the empress that she loved her younger sister more than flowers. Azebia asked if she really had a sister. The worker said that she is 10 years younger than her. She also revealed that their parents died early, so she raised her alone. Marianne added that since she became a servant to the new empress, her sister had been living alone in the city. The princess assumed that it must be very difficult. The worker admitted that she could also have been a servant in the palace, but she has very poor health. Her Majesty asked about my health. Marianne said that her sister has been suffering from multiple sclerosis for a long time, and she's trying to find a cure for it. The next moment she apologized to Her Majesty for this story and her frankness. Azebia reassured the maid and reminded her that she was the first to offer to talk. The empress said that they saw each other every day, but she never tried to get to know each other better. She declared that from now on she would be her closest friend. Azebia admitted that this was why she had offered to chat today, to mend their relationship, even if it was already late. The heroine thought that Marianne was so estranged from her because she was the new overseas empress. The girl decided that if you establish a relationship with her and just talk more often, you can become close friends. She chastised herself for not doing this from the start. If only Marianne wouldn't have been so withdrawn. Azebia remembered her vow that she would not live as before, but admitted that the habit of running away from people without knowing them remained. The heroine has accepted the fact that she is no longer a princess who died as a pawn in a game of large pieces. Now she has become an empress, in whose subjects a large number of people. She assured Marianne that she would try to find some way out. The maid replied that Her Majesty should not pay attention to such trifles. Azebia replied that she was now her person, so it was important to her. She mentally praised herself for not running away from this kind of problem anymore. She decided that she would do everything in her power. Kanak asked what the matter was, and how did Azebia manage to get here. The wife replied that she had come to ask for something. She asked if it wouldn't bother them, if they were busy. Aslan started to answer that they were discussing reform, but Kanak stopped him and informed him that he was completely free. He added that he just wanted to go to her. The girl was happy and asked if he could do something for her. Azebia asked if His Majesty would like to have dinner together today. Already at the table, the princess asked why he was so surprised when she suggested dinner together. She added that it was a sudden act, and she thought he would refuse. Kanak replied that in any case it was already time for dinner. He admitted that, on the contrary, he was pleasantly surprised by such an offer. Ezebia stated that this request of hers had caused a lot of trouble for the palace cooks, and she felt her cheeks turn red. She suggested that they must not have guessed that there would be only 2 of them, and that they had prepared so much food. Kanak wondered why she was so worried, because everything is as usual. The girl was surprised that it turned out to be a usual dinner for him. It came to her that she ate exclusively in the library every day and knew nothing. Kanak asked his wife, what should he do with her? Afterwards, the emperor said that it was good that they dined together. It helped him to know that she was eating so little. He offered his wife to always do it together now. Ezebia thought that she needed to learn so much from books, both the secrets of the guardians and the cure for multiple sclerosis. She managed to deny her husband that he always had such a lot to do. Kanak admitted that he was worried about her health and eternal weakness. He offered her dessert and asked if she didn't like raspberries. He also asked, by the way, what is the matter? Frightened, Ezebia asked what he meant. Kanak reminded her that she hadn't just asked him to spare his time while he was busy. He added that he thought she wanted to tell him something. The wife replied that she had heard about something from her maid. She admitted that Marianne was in a predicament and asked if he knew her. Kanak replied that of course he knew, because he was the one who brought her to the palace. He said that she had studied for a long time to become an exemplary servant. The emperor remembered that she was distinguished by her manners and neatness, so he immediately appointed her as a servant in the palace. He also remembered that she occasionally left the palace, so he assumed she had some kind of problem, but he didn't know what exactly. Kanak reasoned that multiple sclerosis is a very complex disease and decided that it must be difficult for her to concentrate on work. Ezebia said that it would be better if Sister Marianne was around, and it would be easier to take care of her, and asked permission if she could be accommodated in her palace. The man unexpectedly asked, maybe she should be settled in the imperial palace? He explained that the doctors of the palace were aiming to study sclerosis in more detail. Kanak added that, in addition, the conditions in the palace are better than in any hospitals, but he said that it would be a short distance for Marianne to get to her from the special palace of the Empress, where she works. Ezebia asked her husband if he would really allow it. The man replied that everything in the palace should be done according to the will and wishes of the Empress. The heroine was amazed, because she did not think that he would go to meet her. She thanked Kana and said that if it hadn't been for him, it's unknown what would have happened to Marianne and her sister. The man replied that he had only fulfilled her request. He added that she should be thanked first of all, not him. The wife tried to deny that this was possible, only thanks to his generosity, and offered to agree that they are both well done. Kana, smiling, replied that he agreed. The heroine mentally scolded herself for being so excited. She decided that it was necessary to finish the meal and leave the table. Kanak informed Ezebia that she had something on her cheek. She asked if it was here, but he answered that it was from the other side. The man stood up and removed it from her face. Ezebia blushed again and stammered thanks to Kana. Was she worried about what would happen in the end? The girl saw Kanak's reaction and wondered what the matter was. The emperor turned to his wife and wanted to offer her something, and the minister of the interior Aslan ran into the room. He wanted to show His Majesty the documents of which he spoke earlier. Aslan asked if he was late. Kanak wanted to express his displeasure to him, but stopped and asked what was there with the documents. Ezebia thought in her mind, did the man really want to kiss her? The emperor told his wife that they had a good time and said goodbye. The heroine did not know what to do, because for some time she felt strangely close to Kanak. Marianne asked if this was true, and her sister would be able to receive treatment at the palace. Ezebia confirmed, and said that she had already discussed it with His Majesty. She said that the place in the hospital has already been prepared, so she will be able to bring her here soon. But the maid objected that according to the rules, all establishments in the palace could be visited only by officials and aristocrats, and by no means commoners like them. The princess asked how she could say such a thing. Marianne admitted that she comes from an ordinary family. She added that she was very lucky when the emperor gave her a job in the palace. After all, in another country, such a commoner would not even be allowed to touch the dress of the empress. Ezebia explained that this was the empire of Riadan, and here people were judged by their abilities, not by their origins. She added that Marianne copes with her duties better than anyone, so she deserves it. The heroine asked, can the empress be beautiful if she puts some rules above people? Her Majesty saw the maid's reaction and hurried to reassure her that it was her personal desire to help her. She asked to accept it. Marianne tried to say something to the princess, but she still couldn't find the right words. She began to cry and said, how could she do such a thing to someone like the empress? The maid fell to her knees and began to apologize to Her Majesty. She admitted that some people involved her in bad affairs to harm the Empress. Marianne revealed that they had promised to give her a cure for multiple sclerosis if she would give them information about Her Majesty. She demanded that Ezebia punish her for even thinking of agreeing to it. Ezebia calmed the girl down because she just wanted to help her sister. The heroine said that Marianne, on the contrary, deserves praise that even under such difficult conditions she did not agree to such a thing. The Empress asked her to better tell her what kind of people they were. The maid only stammered. Marianne began to talk and was very worried. Finally, she admitted that it was the famous and well-known aristocrat of the empire, Baron Edwin. Ezebia replied that she had never heard that name before, but she did not understand why he needed information about her. The maid said she didn't know that. The girl said that this is a very cunning person. He showed disrespect to the past emperor, so he later went on the run to avoid reprisals. Later, he supported the revolution to get out of his position and was even called the co-founder of the empire. Ezebia assumed that, therefore, he did not agree with the very idea of the revolution, but for his own well-being, he still supported it. Marianne confirmed this version of the princess and added that even Baron Weiner Oslin refused the title, although he made a considerable contribution to the revolution. She went on to say that other revolutionaries, such as Baron Edwin, did not receive high titles and were only given a plot of land by the emperor. According to the maid, Baron Edwin has lost even that, so he now works only as a minor official in the imperial palace. Ezebia asked why he should follow her now, when everything seems calm in politics. Marianne warned Her Majesty to be more careful. The maid remembered that Baron Edwin always spoke of the plural, so she decided that someone else was involved. The Empress asked Marianne if she knew where the estate was that the Baron had received as a gift. She replied that according to her knowledge, it was near the northeastern border of the empire. She specified that it was next to the border settlements, right next to the border with the Archai kingdom. Ezebia was amazed, because then he owns land next to her country? The princess thought in her mind that maybe he was involved in the case with Baron Edwin, but her thoughts were distracted by something. Unexpectedly, the pendant of the connection with her older brother lit up. Ezebia mentally scolded herself. Why she didn't guess right away? Because there is only one person who is interested in the kind action of the princess in the empire. She thought that her older brother did not believe her and decided to follow her through other people. Marianne turned to Her Majesty. The Empress thanked the maid for telling her. The girl asked the lady if, with her permission, she could contact Baron Edwin again. She added that she was sure that Ezebia would not ignore his actions, and warned that if they found out about it, they would not be able to identify the Baron's accomplices. Marianne warned the Empress that it was dangerous for her to do anything alone now. She offered the lady to become a double agent and explained that she would agree to the Baron's terms to earn his trust, but would be on the lady's side. Ezebia expressed concern that the maid might be hurt, but she replied that it's okay. Marianne stated that Her Majesty had saved her sister's life, so she was willing to sacrifice her life for the Empress. Therefore, she once again asked permission from the Empress to do this. Ezebia thanked and agreed to the maid's plan. At night, the heroine went to the garden to communicate with the flowers, because she was disturbed by Marianne's statement that she was ready to sacrifice her life for her sake. The girl heard someone's steps, and someone called her name. It was Canuck. He asked what she was thinking about. She explained that there are beautiful flowers everywhere. Ezebia showed him the flower and informed him that they usually don't bloom that long. The girl assumed that the gardener was taking good care of them. The man replied that now he also thinks so after her words. The heroine told Cana that she had informed Marianne of his permission to bring her sister to the palace for treatment. She added that the maid was very happy about it. She said that then, surprisingly, Marianne took her hand and confessed that she wanted to be on her side. The wife was worried whether she deserved her trust, because in fact she had done nothing for her. Ezebia then apologized for her empty feelings and said that she should not have said that at all. Canuck admitted that he walks this way to his office every day, but today was the first time he noticed these flowers. He added that if it weren't for his wife, he might never have known how much effort the gardener put into it. The emperor stated that the same was true of Marianne. He had suspected her problem, but would never have thought to ask himself. Ezebia heard him say that being attentive to others and being able to take care of them is a lot of work. Canuck admitted that he was very glad that his wife was a girl who was capable of taking responsibility for the entire empire. He thanked Ezebia for becoming the empress of this empire. The heroine was worried that he had no idea what she was hiding from him. It was a secret of the keepers and an agreement with his brother. Ezebia decided that as long as she hid these two facts from him, She would never be able to become a true empress, but the girl tried to at least try, even if this relationship is not real. She remembered the emperor's words that she was that person, which can take responsibility for the entire empire. She took out a communication pendant from the drawer and heard someone call her by name. It was Azebia's older brother, and she said that they had not spoken for a long time. Dietrich stated that she had not been in touch for so long that he began to worry that she had died. He assumed that she was still trying to gain the emperor's trust. Azebia apologized for making him worry. She heard a question about how she lives in the palace and answered that everything is not as bad as he thinks. The heroine mentioned that Marianne is now acting as a double agent and expressed the hope that this will help her get information about those who wish her harm sooner. She decided that she needed to check on her brother, so she should be the cutest with him now. Azebia lied to Dietrich that the emperor was suspicious of everyone, so she still hadn't managed to get him to stay with her. The brother was surprised and replied that according to his information, on the contrary, he treats her well. The girl nervously asked what he meant. Dietrich replied that she really thought he would send his only sister alone to a foreign land. He admitted that he immediately sent a spy to the palace to follow her. Azebia speculated in her mind that maybe her brother was behind Baron Edwin. She found the strength to calmly say that she even likes it and wanted to know who this spy was in order to understand who was on her side. Did she really need to know that? Dietrich asked. He advised her to do what he told her to do. He added that politics can be very disappointing for a girl like her. The brother mentioned that a new tax reform is being actively discussed in the empire. He commented that this reform plan is quite radical, but the aristocrats surprisingly calmly react to it. Dietrich asked his sister to find out how the emperor managed to win over the aristocrats to his side. He specified that this information was needed in order for them to be able to destroy the empire. Azebia tried to deny that many conservative aristocrats were the basis of the revolutionary movement. Her brother stopped her and told her that she was running too far ahead. He suggested that instead of these worries, she should learn more about Kaina's weaknesses. The man added that it was also instead of making cute dialogue with him in bed. Dietrich asked his sister to contact him more often from now on and expressed the hope that she was still on Arkai's side. He called her his beloved sister. Prince Arkai was getting nervous. Why was she pretending not to know anything? He remembered her words that she was worried about Arkai's fate, but he considered it an outright lie. Dietrich thought she was just worried about the world, which made her a hero. He assumed that this humiliating marriage suited her perfectly. He decided in his mind that if Azebia was so worried about the fate of her country, then she should fight to the end. Dietrich said that everyone is praying for the fall of their kingdom. He added that Azebia would never know what he had done to protect their country. He was only 14 years old when he became regent for their ailing father, who had lost both his wife and power over the kingdom. No aristocrat wanted to obey the will of the young prince who replaced the sick king. He remembered how his little sister Azebia was crying and saying that she missed her mother. And it was then that he decided that he would protect his family and his country, even if it took his whole life. He made a difficult decision to part with his sister for the sake of salvation. One day, Dietrich overheard a secret conversation where it was said that the princess had awakened as a guardian. They assumed that this was proof that Archaea was still blessed with a silver forest. It was also reported that the first Prince Dietrich is not a custodian. The men said that there was an opinion that she should get the throne and not the crown prince. Azebia apologized to her brother and said that she hoped for his understanding because she had not yet fully recovered. Dietrich agreed that it would take some time to settle down. He said that Azebia became a guardian, but did nothing good for Arkai. He was angered by the fact that the royal aristocrats only saw her as the heir to the throne, but her magical powers only isolated Archaea. Dietrich considered it disgusting and unacceptable. One secret person told His Majesty that his time would soon come. He added that this would happen when he himself cut off the head of the rootless king. He also suggested that Dietrich would then be able to become the ruler of an entire continent. Dietrich agreed and said that he would not have to wait long. He believed that Archaea needed to be rebuilt from the ground up in order for it to thrive. But he thought that only he could make it the main country, even though he was its guardian. The elder prince vowed to prove it, no matter what it cost him. The maid asked Azebia if she wanted to meet with the members of parliament. The heroine replied that she would be interested to find out between whom the power in the empire is divided. She asked Marianne that, according to her recent words, there are always 20 people in parliament. The worker replied that everything was true and informed that 10 of them were aristocrats and 10 were commoners. Marianne clarified that in order to pass a new law, the consent of 13 or more people is needed. Ezebia guessed in her mind that during the vote, a political battle was inevitable because the ratio of aristocrats and commoners in the parliament was 50 to 50. Therefore, she thought that members of parliament knew the situation in the empire better than others. The girl mentioned that her brother already knows about the preparation of the tax reform. The empress thought that Baron Edwin was a rather modest official, and it must have been difficult for him to get information about the reform, which was still only in preparation. She came to the conclusion that one of the aristocrats, who is a member of parliament, is related to her brother. Ezebia again expressed her desire to meet some aristocrats during the parliament. She asked if it would not be seen as a loud political gesture. Marianne replied that she had heard that some of the noble ladies sometimes attended the sittings of parliament, and even held tea afterwards. She recommended that the empress hold a tea party and invite the noble ladies, and then it would be like a normal social activity. Ezebia assumed that through these ladies she would be able to learn something useful. She thanked Marianne for the good idea, and she promised in return that in a few days everything would be ready for tea. The maid asked, "Where would you like to hold this event?" Ezebia replied that she didn't even know, and added that if it was a tea party, it should be held in a very nice place. After some time, Marianne met the guests and welcomed them to the empress's palace. She invited them to follow her. The ladies could not contain their admiration and said that they had never been in such a beautiful greenhouse. One girl said that there were many rumors about a princess from a small kingdom and that this marriage was arranged. But she did not expect that the emperor would care so much for his wife. The maid informed the empress that the guests had arrived. Ezebia was a little worried because it was their first meeting. The guests discussed that the palace was incredibly beautiful and assumed that it was a gift from the emperor. Ladies from the most noble aristocratic families gathered here in case of a meeting of the parliament. One lady said that it is not a sin to brag about such luxury. Duchess Evelyn Haley inquired of Ezebia if she was comfortable in her palace, which would be impossible without the care of the emperor. It is known that the Haley family was always on the emperor's side, and it was from this family that all the empresses during the Pernin dynasty came. But as soon as the revolution began, this family was the first of the aristocrats to side with Connacht. All who gathered here were noble ladies. Ezebia knew that they all came from wise families that had survived the revolution, so she understood that their opinion of her could greatly affect her future political activities. Ezebia was quite worried about one silent guest at the table. According to Marianne, it was Oslin's sister, Marchioness Renbella Brooks. The empress caught herself thinking that she seemed familiar to her. She turned to the guest and asked if she was the Marquise Brooks. Ezebia asked if she liked the tea and its aroma. The girl shyly answered teasingly that she really liked this tea. She added, stuttering, that it was the first time she had seen such tea leaves, and admitted that their family also grew tea. Another guest nearby noted ironically that the Marquise is always the same in front of the Empress. Duchess Haley apologized to the Empress for the Marquise's rudeness and clarified that she was simply very shy and sarcastic. Two more guests at the table whispered. One lady asked, "Did she say that their family grew tea?" Another replied that everyone knows that the Brooks estate is in a cold place where only trees that can withstand frost grow. Her Majesty was asked that, it seems, it is also very cold in her motherland. The Duchess commented that in the north of the empire, it is so cold that there is almost no harvest there. She suggested that families like the Brooks had a hard time living there. She asked Ezebia how things were going in her motherland and asked if it was much different, for example, from the north of the empire. Ezebia decided in her mind that this was a test. She assumed that they had purposely put Renbella in an awkward position to see which side the Empress would take. She thought that someone from the family was closely related to her brother. The heroine knew what needed to be done to implement her plans, but doubted the correctness of such an action. She wondered if her decision was correct and regretted that she could not use her powers now. Ezebia remembered that meeting with Connacht and what she had promised to try then. The Empress managed to answer that in the north, as they said, the climate is cold and harsh all year round. The guest was surprised by such an answer and asked if it matters where people live, in the south or in the north. Ezebia replied to Duchess Haley that she liked it very much that the noble ladies showed their interest in the northern lands, thereby showing concern for them. She expressed the hope that if they understand how difficult life is for families in the northern lands, then they know perfectly well how to cope with their own lands. "What did Her Majesty mean?" asked the Duchess. She clarified whether it is about whether they are able to manage their own lands. Ezebia said that she was correctly understood. She added that it had been a bad winter here recently, and she wondered how they survived it. The guest replied that in the south of the empire, winters are not as bad as in the north because they were blessed by the goddess. The empress expressed surprise. Her Majesty was not calmed down and commented that she knew about last autumn, when there was very little rain, and then there was a shortage of food in the empire. She added that there is even a record that in connection with this grain was issued from the storage of the imperial palace. The duchess was silent and listened. Ezebia said that even with the blessing of the goddess, winter still remains a difficult period for people. She said that severe cold and famine are coming, and it does not depend whether it is north or south. The empress spoke to all the guests, which means that they should understand how to cope with the most difficult situations. She asked the ladies to answer her questions, but they continued to sit in silence. Ezebia declared that the ladies seemed to have nothing to say yet, so she asked the Marchioness to tell her how their winter had been. The Marchioness of Rinbella gave Her Majesty's consent to begin the story. She admitted that she was ashamed to talk about it, but added that where they live, winter is very difficult. The Marquis said that every year His Majesty gives them grain, which they save to give out later in hard times. Rinbella also told how the farmers work and are able to earn a fair wage during the winter. They collect firewood and transport it to the palace. This, according to her, allowed them to preserve their dignity. Ezebia praised the Brooke family's actions towards the farmers. She clarified that thanks to this, people who rent land can spend the winter in relative comfort, unlike those who are less fortunate. Duchess Evelyn Haley asked Her Majesty what answer she expected from them. She clarified that she just wanted to know about winter in her homeland. Ezebia said that before this event, she checked all the annual financial reports of the empire. The Empress stated that according to these reports last winter, Duke Haley and Duke Goto purchased large quantities of railway ore from abroad, and there are records of its importation into the empire. Her Majesty stated that the Brooks family spent their money last winter in buying food and clothing for the farmers. She asked Evelyn what her family did with the ore and wondered what it could be used for in such a quantity. The Duchess shouted, "Does the Empress mean that they planned the rebellion like this?" Countess Otto then intervened, saying that Her Majesty had misunderstood about the railway ore. Evelyn started yelling at her friend to stop. The girl admitted that they wanted to buy the imperial mine, which will soon be put up for auction. She explained that the ore was needed for the development of this mine. Ezebia wondered what the purchase of this mine could mean. It occurred to her that the aristocrats had agreed to tax reform on the condition that the imperial mine would be put up for auction. She decided that this was the reason for the tacit consent of conservative aristocrats. Evelyn Haley said that even if it is not visible, but they also contribute to the prosperity of the empire. She said that she has put her life on the line for this country, but all she gets in return is contempt, so she can't just leave it at that. The Duchess asked Her Majesty's permission to leave the event. Ezebia was worried that a week had passed since the tea party, and she still hadn't received a letter from any of the ladies. It must have been that they didn't like her. She wondered if it would be better if she just wanted to please them, but someone spoke to her and interrupted her anxious thoughts. It was Minister Oslin asking Her Majesty's permission to enter. Ezebia was surprised and asked about what business Baron Vaynar came to see her. He replied that he had something to tell her. He gave the letter to the Empress and said that his sister had asked him to give it to her. Oslin said he had heard how Her Majesty had shown concern for her sister. He said that when Rinbella was 10 years old, she fell seriously ill and then started stuttering. The man explained that it is because of this that she almost never leaves her estate. The minister added that that day she visited the palace for the first time, and the first thing she did was ask to deliver a letter to the Empress. The Empress opened the bag and asked what it was. The man replied that it was tea that only grew on the Brooks family estate. He said that the leaves are quite small, but thanks to its endurance, this plant withstands even snow and continues to grow, which makes the aroma of tea simply unsurpassed. Oslin joked and said that this tea was very valuable, and even he could not always get it. He assumed that probably the sister wanted to thank Her Majesty in this way for the care shown. Ezebia heard that he thought she might make a more worthy servant, for she was a very clever girl and knew much more than her brother. He thanked Her Majesty again for her kindness to him and his sister, and promised he would never forget it. The Empress turned to Baron Vaynar and called him a responsible person who can be entrusted with the affairs of the empire. The heroine remembered Connacht's words that even without magic, she was able to help someone. Ezebia told Oslin that he was right about the value of his sister's gift. The Empress told her husband that he would probably like to try Rinbella's tea. He replied that he was satisfied because her tea party turned out to be successful. Ezebia confirmed this, because thanks to the event she managed to meet the Marquise Brooks and her brother. She added that Baron Oslin was too kind to her. Canuck was surprised and questioned. The man asked, since when does she call him by his first name now? The wife was worried. Ezebia explained that he himself had said that she was the empress, and he was just a mere vassal, so she should address him by name, not title. The girl admitted that she thought that he did not like her and assumed that life is full of surprises. Kana asked if she was happy about it. She replied that he himself wanted her to get along with his subordinates, so she was glad that she succeeded. Kanak admitted that sometimes she manages to make him worry. The wife apologized and asked what he meant. The man replied that it didn't matter. He asked her to let him know if he was distracting her too much. The emperor asked if the girl would arrive today. Ezebia replied that today is a really important day. She clarified that Idis will move to the palace. Ezebia personally met Adis and welcomed her to the palace. She assumed that she must be tired. The girl replied that it was a great honor for her. Marianne looked very happy and hugged her sister. Adis replied that she was not tired at all. The elder sister clarified that she was much better thanks to Her Majesty's medicine. Ezebia advised and assured the girl that she would soon be on the mend, because the imperial doctors would take care of her. She added that she was glad to meet and expressed the hope that they would become friends. The empress felt very sorry for Adis in her mind, because the poor thing had suffered a lot. When the girl extended her hand, Ezebia caught herself thinking that she had a strange feeling. She didn't understand where it came from and what it could mean. Their warm meeting was interrupted by Simon apologizing to Her Majesty and worried that he had kept them waiting so long. Her Majesty assured him that all was well and informed him that they themselves had just arrived. She mentally noted that she was just dizzy, nothing more. The heroine introduced the arriving guest and said that she was Adis, Marianne's sister. Adis sweetly greeted the young doctor, and he replied that he was very pleased. Simon suggested we go and see the hospital. Ezebia thought that she was a little mistaken, because she thought that they would quickly become friends due to their age, but it seems that it will take a little more time. The doctor began to tell that the hospital is at the disposal of the imperial family and their relatives, so there are not many wards here. He added that here they concentrated all possible resources on studying diseases and developing medicines. Adis squealed in delight. The doctor said that it is in this room that they are studying sclerosis. He apologized for the mess and explained that he didn't have time to put things in order. Ezebia admitted that she is proud of him, because it is immediately clear that the doctors here are not sitting idle. She looked at the papers and asked if these were the materials of experiments. He explained that the Gieler Trade Guild is the sole manufacturer and distributor of multiple sclerosis drugs, and they have almost complete control over prices. Simon revealed that they also tried to create their own formulas to compete with them. But when they studied the composition of the medicine, they found ingredients there that they did not expect to see there. Therefore, from Simon's words, they decided that there was a trace of magic in it. He added that the experiments had reached a dead end, because none of them were familiar with magic. Ezebia replied that if it was only about magic, then she could help. She asked Simon what he thought about it, and added that they could make good partners in this case. The young doctor was noticeably nervous. Kanak asked his wife if she really wanted to work with Simon on the medicine. She replied that he understood everything correctly. Ezebia thought that her magic had noticeably weakened since she left Archaea, but she believed that the development of medicines should not require a lot of effort. She also hoped that this was a good reason to consolidate her position as an empress. She wanted to help where she was competent and was sure that Kanak would support her. The heroine asked her husband if her plan was not great. Kanak looked confused and asked again. The girl decided that he was not happy. The emperor turned to Ezebia and suggested that she had her reasons, but informed him that, unfortunately, he must refuse her this time. The upset wife asked why he did not agree. She explained that she and Simon are ready to devote all their time to research and help victims. Kanak replied that if she brought up the subject of medicine, she must have heard of the trade guild. The man explained that the Gillier is the most powerful trade guild on the entire continent, and most of the trade, including the non-human races, goes through them. He stated that it is pointless to make enemies in the face of those who control the flow of gold on the continent, because he does not even know the extent of their power. Moreover, medicine for sclerosis is their main product, so they will not tolerate competitors. Ezebia replied that she knew the risks, but she could not just calmly watch people die in agony. She admitted that she could not close her eyes to it. Kana replied that the imperial doctors had almost solved the problem, but she needn't worry. The wife disappointedly said that she thought he would support her. She added that she thought he was glad of her appearance in Riadon, for he claimed she was a natural-born empress. The man agreed, but said it was irrelevant. He specified that he would like her to live in comfort and prosperity. Kanak asked why she should risk her life if she could rule from the safety of the palace. Ezebia asked, did he mean that she should shut herself up in this doll's house, quietly drinking tea with sweets like some spoiled little princess? She added that she was not going to be a puppet here. Later, she apologized to Kanak and admitted that she had said too much. Ezebia noticed that he was getting angry. With regret, she realized that she was wrong again, because she violated the boundaries and communicated incorrectly with the emperor. In her mind, she thought that she had forgotten her place, and she was simply nobody here. She allowed self-love to blind her just because he was nice to her. The girl asked His Highness for forgiveness. She added that she was not going to challenge his authority. Kanak was surprised by his wife's words and explained that she didn't quite understand everything, but he didn't want to scare her. Ezebia wanted to stop him, but he still confidently said that he had to apologize. He said he didn't know it was so important to her. The heroine realized that he was definitely not angry with her. There was something else here. She guessed, was he really driven by fear? The wife asked Kanak what was confusing him so much. The emperor admitted that he was afraid, because again he might not protect a person dear to him, and this thought scared him. He added that he can't stop thinking about it. Kanak knelt down and asked to persuade his wife. He asked her to let him protect her. Ezebia replied to Kanak that he seemed very worried about it. The girl added that if his past still bothers him so much, he can open up to her. The man offered to talk about it later. He left without looking back, and his wife continued to call him by name. Ezebia was upset because even at night he did not return. She wondered who he could have lost so painfully. But her thoughts were interrupted by someone who wished Her Majesty good morning. It was Marianne. She said that the Empress woke up early today. The maid said that she was going to replace the new flowers in the vase. Ezebia called it a good idea and complained that it was not a good day today. Ezebia turned to Marianne and asked if she was picking the flowers herself. The heroine was amazed because she heard that His Majesty personally chooses the flowers. Marianne admitted that they were delivered to her every morning so that the Empress would have fresh flowers every day. The girl could not believe that they were all from Kanak. Ezebia decided in her mind that Kanak was definitely not a terrible person, but something still bothered her. Soon the Empress was walking around her greenhouse. Marianne concluded that the weather was fine today and suggested that the ladies take a walk in the garden while the sun was shining. Ezebia was worried that she had made the maid worry for nothing. Still, she decided that she shouldn't stay here because all these flowers make her think about bad things. The heroine heard a sound and wondered if there was anyone here. In the bushes, the Empress saw an unfamiliar young man sleeping. Not understanding anything, Ezebia began to wonder who it could be. The stranger yawned, and the girl noted that she had never seen him before. She also noticed that he was in military uniform and began to wonder how he ended up here. Ezebia decided to call the guard just in case. The young man woke up and looked at Her Majesty in surprise. The girl felt embarrassed and could not find words. Afterwards, the stranger smiled and said that he should recognize their new empress. He apologized for his rudeness and suggested that he must have fallen asleep prematurely. Ezebia wondered what this man was even doing here. She asked the young man his name and rank, but he replied that he was not from the army. The man said that he was honored to introduce himself to the Empress and announced that he was Yaxer. Ezebia could not believe that it was the same Jaxer. Sir asked if she knew him. Of course Ezebia knew him, because if Aslan was Kanak's left hand, Jaxer was his right hand. It is known that he was a slave, like Kanak, but thanks to his military prowess, he quickly rose through the ranks and became a commander in the imperial army. The Empress accused Jaxer of lying because she knew that he was the commander of the imperial army. The young man was amazed that she already knew this, but he added that he told the truth because he was no longer in the army. Ezebia asked in surprise. Yaxer announced that he had resigned because he was fed up with the army. He said that his beautiful face has no place on the battlefield, so now he is free as a bird. The young man admitted that he also stopped keeping up with the emperor's demands and did not want his work to lead him to the grave before his time. Ezebia agreed that he was brutal when it came to work, but added that he was the nicest man she knew. Yaxer asked if she really thinks so. The man clarified that this description did not apply at all to the emperor he knew. He told the Empress that she could call a spade, and there was no need to hide her true feelings. The girl asked what he meant. Yaxer asked if their marriage union was not contempt and humiliation for all of Arcay. The man admitted that the emperor is known for his stupid temper and causes fear in everyone around him. He assumed that the Empress did not know this from someone else's lips. Ezebia stopped Jaxer and asked how he could talk about him like that, since he was his close friend. Jaxer concluded that His Majesty had shown himself from the best side in front of his wife. The man asked Ezebia maybe he forced her to be silent. He added that he was worried about her because His Majesty was not a very pleasant person. The Empress told Jaxer that he was crossing all boundaries, and she would not allow him to insult her husband in her presence. She urged him to immediately stop making his baseless accusations. The man asked about the baseless and said that he had known the Emperor since childhood. The girl denied that he did not really know him then. Jaxer asked, "Is it really so, and she thinks so?" She agreed. Ezebia admitted that she could not dream of a better husband because he is kind and treats her with respect. She added that she loves and respects the Emperor. Jaxer ironically concluded that the Empress was completely satisfied with her married life, and it was so touching. Ezebia threatened him that she was warning him for the last time. Behind him, and Jaxer asked if His Highness agreed with him. The Empress was very embarrassed by such an unexpected appearance. She realized that Kanak had heard everything. The girl angrily asked the man how long he had been standing there quietly. He replied that he had received information that Jaxer was here, so he had come just in case. Jaxer said that this was the end of his work and wished everyone a good day. Ezebia guessed that he was just mocking her because Kanak was standing behind her. The Emperor informed his wife that they had something to discuss. Kana asked if she had a spare moment. He asked if Ezebia slept well, and she said no. She clarified that she could not sleep well after what happened. Ezebia confessed that she was afraid that he would not want to see her again, because he did not return to the room during the night. The girl suggested that the man might be angry, but he denied that it was entirely his fault. Kanach explained that it was never his intention to limit her freedom or threaten her. He also admitted that he would not be able to fix anything if she hated him. The man reported that he felt powerless at that moment, although he was aware of what he had done. According to him, that is why he ran away like a coward. Ezebia asked why she should hate him. She admitted that she did not expect such a reaction from him, but still understood that he was trying to protect her. The Empress happily told Kana that she trusted him. She added that she had forgotten to thank him for the flowers, but they were beautiful. Kanak replied that these were trifles, and the girl denied that they were not trifles for her. The man said he had something more suitable and reached into his pocket. He showed the pendant and asked to squeeze it in his hand. Ezebia wondered what it was. The girl clutched the ornament in her hand, and magical things began to happen around her. The Empress assumed it was a magical artifact. Kana asked if she likes it. She nodded affirmatively and called the pendant beautiful. The girl added that such a thing is not easy to get. Kanak said he got it from the dwarves after one successful deal. The Emperor assumed that, looking at his wife's joyful smile, he was not mistaken with the gift. The wife thanked and assured that she would never forget this day. Kanak embraced Ezebia and said that he hoped she would not object. He asked her to let him know if she felt uncomfortable with such closeness. The wife, stammering, tried to answer that she did not feel discomfort. Kanak then asked if he could continue. He admitted that he had a great desire to kiss her. Ezebia asked if he was asking her permission and added that it was quite unexpected, but she didn't know what to say. The girl said that she did not mind. Kanak admitted that he had never been so close to anyone either. All this time, the heroine thought that he did not have enough experience. The Emperor advised his wife not to forget to breathe through her nose. The girl replied that it is difficult to monitor breathing in such a situation. The man advised that more attention should be paid to practice. Ezebia asked in surprise. Kanak reassured his wife and reminded her that before she was even afraid to lie down in the same bed with him, but then she got used to it. So it will be the same with this. He asked, "Is she really that bad?" The girl answered that no. The Emperor pressed her to him again, and Ezebia asked for time to catch her breath. The Empress wanted to say something, but the man began to kiss her. Ezebia noticed that the lights had gone out. Kanash clarified that it was magic from the scroll, but they wouldn't glow for long. She asked if he had wasted the magic scroll just for her. The man replied that there is nothing like that here. The Emperor said that her smile was more valuable than any magic. Kanash confessed to Ezebia that he had once made a vow to himself that he would make his wife the happiest woman in the world. He remembered that for a slave, marriage and family were immeasurable things. The heroine thought that for her, this marriage was nothing more than a political union. But Kana do everything to make it real. She was troubled by the fact that all this time he had been so kind and attentive to her, and she had answered him with lies and anger. Ezebia apologized again and said that she was sure that her husband forbade her to develop medicines only for her own good. She assumed that she could know what he was afraid of. because she knew very well what it was like to see the death of loved ones. The Empress did not give up and added that it was precisely because of this that she needed to develop these medicines. The girl explained that multiple sclerosis takes people away from their loved ones, so someone has to put an end to it. Kanak replied that in such a case, he did not dare to stop her. He admitted that he was always impressed by her strength of spirit, and he understood that she would stop at nothing. The husband asked that the wife only carefully monitor her safety. Unexpectedly, Ezebia announced that she had an idea how to distribute the medicine, namely by using secret routes. Kana asked about the secret ways. The heroine explained that they could create an anonymous trade guild. The girl had no doubt that this would not immediately make their position on the market strong. But at the same time, she expressed the hope that in this way, they will be able to ensure the safety of those who sell and buy these drugs. Ezebia added that all this would be possible if His Majesty would allow her and Simon to work on the development. Kana asked if his permission was the only thing stopping her. The wife excitedly asked in response what he meant. The emperor wondered how it was that she needed his permission in the first place. He added that if only he had known earlier, that it can make her happy. Kanak said that he would think about how to protect the girl and their experiments. Ezebia asked if that meant he agreed. She also wondered if he would be sleeping in their hallways tonight. The man asked, "Is she really so lonely?" Ezebia, worried, replied that everything here was new for her, and she would just have to get to know everything. She admitted that until then she needed a man by her side. Kanak promised that he would always be with her. Terrible images from the past life appeared in the heroine's head. The man swore that he would always be there, no matter what. Ezebia asked in surprise, "Is there really an underground tunnel under this room?" Kanak specified that the tunnels were created in case of escape in difficult situations. He clarified that there are 16 tunnels under the palace. The girl asked how she could find them because she did not remember seeing strange door handles anywhere. The husband explained that it was not surprising because they were hidden from view and called his wife to come over. He pointed to the thing and said it was a switch. The heroine was surprised because it was a statuette. Kanak asked her to remember that it was the third one from the left and said to press the button. Ezebia cried out in surprise that this was incredible. The emperor invited the girl to pass, calling her his dear wife. He led her down the ladder and warned her to look below her feet. Kanak said that the hall is not yet fully equipped, but everything is necessary for their experiments. Ezebia said that she could not even imagine such a place in the ward and called it magic. The emperor clarified in response that magic is what the wife will do, because not everyone dares to make medicine for sclerosis. The girl replied that it was all Simon's idea, and she thought that she should also show him all this, because without him, it would not be possible to start. Simon and Oslin entered the hall and greeted Her Majesty. The Empress wondered what brought Lord Oslin here. He replied that he was responsible for the construction of this tunnel. He admitted that at first he thought the construction idea strange when he received the order from the Emperor to do it. Oslin added that he now understands who it was all for. Kana asked if he had any problem. The Lord said that he needed to look at some plans from the experiments, because the task in them was quite serious. He happily clarified that his help will not be superfluous. Ezebia was impressed that Lord Oslin had volunteered to help and called him by name. The minister said that he only had information about patients from the temple. Simon clarified that this is a very time-consuming job. Ezebia stated that it is necessary to group patients by symptoms, then by age and sex. She thanked both young men, and they only remained silent in response. The heroine remembered that Lord Oslin treated her with caution when they first met. She thought that now he was trying to help her at any cost, so she wouldn't take it for granted. The girl called everyone in and remembered that Simon was talking about some unfinished paperwork. Simon asked Her Majesty to leave all the small work to them. Oslin, in turn, apologized and asked if she knows how to sort documents. Ezebia replied that she would learn, but Kanak asked that such work be done by young men. A week later, the Empress asked Simon how he was doing. The doctor apologized to Madame and admitted that things were not good at the moment. He explained that in each case, sclerosis occurred suddenly and without symptoms, and the incubation period is also always different. He added that it turns out that age and gender do not affect anything either. Simon said he gathered all the data he could. Ezebia thanked. The heroine thought that they were working non-stop, but all to no avail. She was worried because the lack of progress made the work unbearable. She still had hope that there must be some clue somewhere. Marianne pulled her out of her thoughts and asked if Madame was all right. The maid offered to clean everything. Ezebia replied that she was distracted, and the worker assured her that everything was fine and she would fix everything. Marianne said Her Majesty was working too much. The girl replied that it was her debt, and she had no right to surrender. The maid offered Her Majesty some tea while she filled the bubble with ink. Ezebia noted that she hadn't had Rinbella's tea in a long time, and it had such a wonderful aroma. Marianne warned Her Majesty not to work so hard. It is known that the imperial house of Fernan was forced to watch as sclerosis, without exception, took the lives of the inhabitants of the empire. The maid clarified that for years, sick people still died until Her Majesty came to Riadan. Marianne added that just the thought that someone wants to help them so much gives them strength to go forward. Ezebia admitted that these feelings were mutual and that life would be unbearable for her without the maid. The girl denied Her Majesty and said that she should try to be better. She said that tea had to be made using the water from Feiharu. Ezebia asked if she meant the river. The servant answered that it was about the river and added that it is a testimony of the goddess's patronage over their lands and that all the waters of Riadona flow into Feihar. According to her, the crystal-clear waters of Feiharu are considered the perfect basis for making tea. Ezebia asked if Marianne knew all this from her own experience. The girl said that she grew up in a village near Upper Feihar. She said that local residents drink directly from the river. The water is so clean there. The Empress admitted that it is very interesting, and there are no similar years in Arkai. She wondered how long the girl had lived there. Marianne answered Madame that she lived there until she was 14, and then she had to find a job in the capital to support her family. She added that Adis moved in with her after the death of her parents because she had multiple sclerosis and needed care. Ezebia noted in her mind that Marianne had not contracted multiple sclerosis, even though they lived in the same house as her sick sister. The heroine also assumed that Adis moved to the capital after the infection, and before that, she lived alone on the banks of the Feihar River. It also occurred to her that Feihar is a big river that carries water from all corners of the country. Ezebia guessed with trepidation. Was Feihar the source of the infection? Kaina asked if she really wanted to check the river. The wife lamented that she had not guessed earlier. She noted the fact that sclerosis is spreading throughout the country, but some areas were less affected. The Empress analyzed that these areas began to flourish only recently, thanks to the production in the mine, and Feihar does not flow through these lands. The girl assumed that only migrants who were looking for work there could get infected from these regions. Ezebia stated that it is possible that sclerosis is transmitted through water. Afterwards, the Emperor and Empress went for a walk. A small merchant on the street offered to buy them a flower. He clarified that this rose was watered with Feiharu water and has the grace of the goddess in it, which is an almost perfect gift for newlyweds. The man and woman asked about the newlyweds in surprise. The boy started to apologize guiltily, but they stopped him and said that it was unnecessary. Ezebia declared that he had guessed and that they were on their honeymoon. The girl said she had never been undercover before and admitted that the disguise seemed to work and no one had recognized them yet. She asked Kaina if he was all right. He admitted that he was not used to such a thing, namely, to masking during the day. The wife said it sounded fun, and that's what they usually do at night. But he denied that she should not leave the palace at night. Kanak explained that even in such peaceful times, you never know what danger awaits you. He added that they only got this far because of her research. Ezebia said that she did not expect such excitement from him because he had already agreed to it. He admitted that he had some doubts when she asked to check the river. The Emperor added that he still decided to listen to her because she became one of the main experts in the field of sclerosis. He admitted that Simon and Oslin were also impressed by her insight. The wife replied that he flattered her. Kanak stated that he was absolutely serious and that his wife was a born stateswoman. He added that little by little it becomes a problem because no masking can hide its radiance. The heroine was embarrassed and said that there was nothing special about her. The man asked where she got that from. Kanak admitted that even now he cannot help but admire her beauty. Ezebia stopped him and reminded him that they had important business. The man replied that he knew it. The Emperor said he would take samples of the water. The girl thanked and said that she will talk to people because she hopes to learn something. Kanak whispered in her ear that if anything happened, she should signal to the man in blue. The heroine asked if he meant Commander Yaxer. The Emperor clarified that he was no longer a commander, but only a retired soldier carrying out his orders. His Majesty said that he would be back soon, and his wife cheerfully replied that she was waiting for him. In her mind, she was glad that he still allowed her to do it despite her fears. The heroine understood that without his permission, everything would be much more difficult. Ezebia thought that all the evidence pointed to the river, but it would be better to make sure of it. However, not everyone who drank water from it got sclerosis. The Empress thought that the native plants might know something. As soon as she touched the flower, she heard a voice and a call for help. The flower said that there was something in the water. Ezebia was confused and asked the flowers to talk to her. She asked why they were in such a state of terror. Kvitka offered to look at the memories from that day and once again asked Ezebia to save them. The heroine saw a man who approached the river. She had a question. Who could it be? The girl did not understand what this stranger was doing with the water. Her Majesty thought that something strange was going on here. She realized that she had felt this horror before and caught herself thinking that she was familiar with this magic. With horror, Ezebia guessed that this was what had killed her in her past life. The heroine wondered why she felt the same magical signature from the water. The Empress remembered that the alchemist who had been working with her brother must be in Arche now. With horror, she thought to herself that it was he who could have infected the waters of Faihar. It also occurred to her that Dietrich could be behind all this. Ezebia screamed in fear because innocent local residents could be in danger. The girl tried to understand what her brother wanted. She thought that if the alchemist Dietrich could curse an entire river without effort, then if their goal was to start a war, they would have done it long ago. But instead, they released a terrible disease down the river. The heroine realized that they knew for sure that the right medicine could hold back the spread of sclerosis for years. Finally, Ezebia guessed about the real goal. It is the monopolization of medicines and price manipulation through Gilead. The Empress remembered Marianne's story about the secret conversation with the Baron. He asked her to fulfill one request, for which she would receive a generous reward. The request was to sow sorrow between the Emperor and the aristocrats, which would bring Riadon to his knees. Ezebia realized that Dietrich was using these revenues to destroy the empire from within. But the worst thing is that all this time the trade guild Hillier cooperated with her brother. The girl decided that she needed to tell everyone as soon as possible before it was too late. Suddenly, Kanak called her and asked what was bothering her so much, because she didn't even notice how her hat flew off. She declared that everything was much more serious than they thought and stammered about the river. Ezebia was very worried if he would believe her, if she could afford to tell him the whole truth. The girl thought what would happen if she failed to convince him. She knew she couldn't tell him everything she'd learned without explaining how she'd gotten the information. The heroine remembered the words of the warning of her elder brother Dietrich, that for strangers, her magic would be nothing, and even something witty. He warned her that their subordinates would be very upset if they found out that her magic only worked on silly conversations with plants. The Empress was worried if her husband would be disappointed after learning about her strange ability. Kanak hugged his wife and assured her that everything was fine. Ezebia wondered why he had such a reaction. He replied that he had noticed that something was bothering her, but she could not tell about it. The Emperor said that he had no idea what was the matter, and assured her that he would not doubt a word she said. Did the girl specify that she should not tell him? He nodded affirmatively. Kanak added that he fully trusted her. The girl softly said his name. Ezebia finally plucked up the courage and began her frank story about the powers she has. The man replied that he could not even imagine that she possessed such an ability. The heroine said that she would understand him if he was disappointed in her. She added that even she would hate to learn that her secrets were known to others. Kanak asked what she meant, because it was her ability that helped him learn about the source of the disease. He said that they all owe her their lives. The Emperor added that he could not be disappointed in her under any circumstances. Ezebia thanked Kanak for his trust. She admitted that she was happy that she could be of use to him and vowed to put an end to multiple sclerosis. She also expressed hope that this problem is already close to being solved. Ezebia was asked if she wanted to research the medicine. She told Simon and Oslin that they needed to carefully investigate the condition of patients after taking existing drugs. The girl thought that now they knew the cause of mass diseases, so it made no sense to look for a relationship between the sick. The heroine thought about the medicine of the trade guild Gilead and decided that there was a special ingredient that could cope with the ailment. White spots appeared in patients who got a little better. Ezebia wondered about the white spots. He showed Madame the documents where the presence of white spots on the chest and stomach of the patients was recorded. Ezebia remembered that Adis had the exact same symptom. The doctor analyzed that before the condition of such patients improved, they were all in critical condition the day before. Oslin assumed that multiple sclerosis was currently incurable, so they took Gier's medicine just to ease the pain. And it was one of the components of these drugs that caused the appearance of white spots. Simon agreed, but was afraid that the magic might have changed the structure of the medicine, so it wouldn't be easy to recognize it. Ezebia stated that skin spots are more common among elves. The doctor asked in surprise, She explained that she learned about it from this book and suggested that it might have something to do with their herbs. Suddenly, the thought came to her mind that it was elven grass that could be used as one of the components of the medicine. She decided in her mind that this might be the clue they had been looking for all this time. The stranger addressed His Highness and informed him that he had arrived. The prince replied that he was the only being in Arkai who could make him wait so long. The stranger apologized and explained that he had some business. Dietrich asked how the experiment was going. The man replied that soon everyone would be quite satisfied with his results. The prince replied that it was wonderful and asked if he had enough money. The stranger replied that trade with other races turned out to be a profitable business, and this was quite enough to cover all expenses. The prince admitted that he would like his sister to be as useful as he is. Did he call her stupid and express incomprehension as to why it was so difficult for her to get any information? The man asked if His Highness remembered the advice. He recalled that he had advised to deal with the princess as soon as she became a hindrance to them. Dietrich clarified, "Is his sister really such an obstacle?" The stranger reported that according to information from their spies, the Empress and the Emperor had gone to Fehar under cover. He added that it could be just an innocent walk, but it should be taken into account. The prince was worried. Could they really guess something? The man assured him that it was. The stranger swore that the princess would never be able to get hold of him, because for her, he was just a colorless shadow in the dark. Simon regretted why he didn't immediately think to check all the ingredients in the medicine and decided that he probably didn't know anything about magic. Suddenly, the doctor shouted that it was simply unbelievable. Rather excitedly, he asked Madame that he wanted to learn more about herbs because it could take research to a new level. He admitted that almost all scientists do not give proper importance to herbology. Kanak appeared and expressed the hope that their search might well be successful. Ezebia happily presented him with evidence that they had been able to identify one of the ingredients in Gilead's medicine. Kanak had read about a medicinal herb used by the Dark Elves. The girl reported that there is still a problem because they do not have the opportunity to get this herb. The man reassured that there was such a possibility. The heroine was pleasantly surprised, and Aslan confirmed the Emperor's words. He explained that His Majesty had taken various steps to oppose the monopoly of trade with the non-human races. The minister added that they managed to establish trade relations with the dwarves without a known guild. He expressed his hope that perhaps this would help them, since the Dark Elves and dwarves were old allies. Ezebia asked if they could use their connections to arrange a meeting with the Dark Elves. The dwarf replied with a refusal and explained that the desire to meet these sharp-eared ones was the most stupid thing he had ever heard from a human. The mysterious hooded person asked the guildmaster what he meant, because he did not understand anything. This mysterious youth was Aslan, and he asked the dwarf if he did not trust him. The guildmaster began to explain that he would not argue, and they even planned to set up trade with other partners, taking into account the monopoly of the Gilead Guild. However, he added that the Dark Elves are a completely different story. Aslan replied that he thought he and the elves were on good terms. The guildmaster agreed, but explained that their hatred of humanity simply knew no bounds. Therefore, they will not agree to a meeting with a person, even if the gnomes ask them to do so. The dwarf said, not sure what to say, but the elves are being attacked. He added that many of the victims were those who settled on the border with people. Therefore, he assumed that it was not necessary to explain who they hated more than everyone else. The guildmaster admitted that the elves were indeed their old allies, so he shouldn't just take people and bring them to them. But he also expressed his conscience that his guest's name was actually Ben. He added that if they really only wanted their herbs, he offered to take their seeds as a token of appreciation for their business together. Aslan shouted for him to wait. The dwarf wished the young man luck. The Empress hesitantly admitted that she had no idea of the hard times the elves were having. She also doubted that they could grow this seed, which they had managed to obtain without the help of the elves. Kanak complained that he had failed Ezebia. However, she assured him that he could not have known about it. Ezebia decided in her mind that she had no right to give up. She thought that Kanak and Aslan had done their best to get the seed. Now it was all up to her. The next morning, Kanak called his wife and asked if she had already gotten into the habit of starting her day here, in the research hall. The Empress explained that she had read about dark elves using magic to grow herbs. She guessed that her magic might not be that effective, but she was in good contact with the energy of the earth, so all she could do was watch and wait. The heroine understood that these seeds are now their only key, so she must make them sprout. But she worried in her heart. Would her magic be enough for her? Canuck noticed that his wife was too cold and asked how long she had been working here. He added that even Marianne was worried about her health. She complained to him that Madame was not eating and sleeping well and was rapidly losing weight. The emperor admitted that not only she was worried, but everyone was worried. The man said that they are all doing everything possible for her to get rid of the burden weighing on her. Canuck said that, for example, he wants to bring back the time when he could simply bring fresh flowers to his peacefully sleeping wife. The man asked Azebia not to leave him alone today, because he has been waiting for her for so long. The heroine was worried. How could she forget about the reason and the people who give her the strength to fight further and further? She mentally admitted that only thanks to this man she came to love these lands so much and value them so much. Azebia finally dared to ask Canuck for permission to kiss him. The girl apologized again and explained that she wanted to kiss the emperor. He said that they had not done this for a long time. Canuck suggested that they should be practiced more often. The heroine asked him to wait and said that this time the initiative was hers. She told him to slow down and not stop. Canuck assured his wife that he would not delay her because he understood that she really had a lot to do. However, I asked to give him a little more time so that he could enjoy the moment. Azebia again apologized and began to tell that in her motherland Arche she was called the Last Hope. She continued with the story that the inhabitants had not known protection for centuries, and therefore placed their hopes on her that she would return Arche to its good times. The girl admitted that everyone relied on her so much, and when she was able to understand it, she already agreed to this overwhelming burden. The heroine told Canuck that everything changed thanks to him. She clarified that he made her understand that there are people who really care about her, and they will believe in her no matter what. Azebia said that she was simply obliged to reciprocate such support from people. She admitted that she trusts him more than anyone, so she wants to fight the disease only if he is on her side. The girl noticed that the man had something in his pocket. Canuck asked Azebia to stop for a moment so that he could get the object. He took out a bottle and explained that it was water from the Fehar River. The man clarified that she was recruited this morning because he thought she would need fresh water for research. He regretfully reported that it was just a bottle of water, but he himself sometimes wondered how pitiful he was. The wife asked again. Canuck asked what was the point of the imperial throne if he couldn't even help his wife properly. He expressed the hope that if he were a sorcerer, he would be more useful. Azebia replied that it sounded as if he had become emperor just for her sake. The man confirmed her words. The girl said that Lord Oslin would not like the thing, but he would probably hate it. Canuck said that he was not joking at all. The emperor admitted that there was a time when he passionately wanted to master magic. He specified that this magic should be the most powerful in order to subjugate the whole world to his will. Azebia replied that in that case it was even better that he took another path. The girl asked the man for permission to take a bottle of water. She asked him to imagine that the bottle was his heart, and the water was the amount of mana it could hold. Azebia explained that every creature was born with a certain amount of mana, and some people only possessed a small amount of mana, enough to fill a bottle. According to her, others, on the contrary, have such a quantity that it can be compared to a whole river. The heroine clarified that such people are called sorcerers. She also added that human wizards are few and far between, and even those who have the potential for magic often lack the amount of mana to reach their full potential. Canuck learned from his wife that if he wanted to possess magic, he would have to be of a different race, an elf, for example. The man admitted to Azebia that she was able to destroy the dream so easily. The girl replied that she just wanted to show him an objective picture and asked if he was upset. Canuck asked Azebia if she had ever met sorcerers, but she honestly admitted that she never did. However, the Empress admitted that she would very much like to meet the sorcerer and would immediately recognize him because they are endowed with a special magical signature that can be noticed by other owners of magical abilities. She remembered hearing something similar from Hades, though the signature was too faint for her to make out. But Azebia decided that there could be no mistake, and it was magic. She understood that Hades is a person with magical abilities, and this explains everything. Canuck called his wife, but she was in her thoughts. She was troubled by the fact that multiple sclerosis was spreading among humans, and that the key to the cure was an elven herb. She analyzed that changing skin color is characteristic of elves, because they all have something to do with magic. She also thought that this symptom was somehow transmitted to people with multiple sclerosis. She finally guessed that this disease was a weapon meant to affect people with magical abilities. The young man asked the guildmaster if he was called. He invited him to come in. The guildmaster was the head of the Gillier Guild named Roman. He asked the guest how the preparations for the banquet were going and said that there was one matter that needed his attention. The young man replied to the sir that everything was going according to plan and specified that all the invitations had been sent. However, Roman objected and said that he had one more invitation to send to one of the guests of honor whom he was looking forward to. The young man asked if it was addressed to the imperial palace. The man approached Marianne, who was just hanging out the laundry, and asked if she was okay. He also asked the maid how her mistress was doing. The girl answered my lord that everything is fine with the lady, as always. She performs her duties well and spends her free time in the library. My lord asked if she was in touch with anyone. Marianne replied that she had not corresponded with anyone since that tea party, and ventured to suggest that she did not like to associate with aristocrats. The man asked, had she really returned to the role of a useless princess in a cage? Marianne apologized and said she hadn't noticed anything of note yet. My lord reassured her and admitted that he was not here because of the empress. He handed the maid the invitation and explained that it was for a banquet by the Gilead Trade Guild. The girl asked in surprise. The man clarified that this is a so-called gesture of goodwill from the aristocracy before the medicine is distributed throughout the country. My lord asked Marianne to draw the empress's attention to the banquet. He assured that it will be very simple because Her Majesty should be interested in obtaining new useful connections. He also advised that if it is not possible to convince with words, then let him simply throw an invitation in her room, for example. Marianne wondered if this order was coming from him or his partners. My lord asked back if it made any difference. He gave a guarantee that this event will definitely be memorable and finally added that he would wait for news from her. Marianne was thoughtfully silent and looked after him. Simon told the ladies that they weren't expecting visitors at Adis today and asked if something had happened. Ezebia decided in her mind that she was right, and everyone who ended up here because of sclerosis possessed mana. She called out to Simon excitedly. The Empress declared that she had succeeded in uncovering the truth behind this disease. The doctor asked her if she was sure. Her Majesty assured that she felt traces of mana in everyone who has multiple sclerosis. She said it couldn't just be a coincidence. She explained her theory, which was that sclerosis only spread among people with magic. Kanak excitedly suggested, was the wife also in danger? Ezebia reassured him and assured him that she had not yet noticed any symptoms in herself. She said she tried to soak her fingers in the water from the river while suppressing her magic as much as possible. According to her, her fingers were only slightly numb, nothing more. The girl explained that taking all this into account, the disease only affected those with a small amount of mana. She also added that many people don't even know they have mana because there is so little of it. Ezebia stated that this insidious plan was designed for most of the inhabitants of the empire. Aslan was impressed and asked about the plan. He asked Her Majesty if she really meant to say that sclerosis was artificially created. At first, Ezebia doubted what to answer, and then confidently said that everything was exactly so. The heroine stated that, in her opinion, the disease was the result of a magical effect on the waters of the Fayar River. She apologized to the team for not telling them sooner, but she wanted to fully confirm her theories herself. Aslan thanked him and said that it was better late than never. The minister added that now they just needed to find a solution and asked Her Majesty if she knew exactly what magic was being used. Ezebia regretfully informed that it was not known and clarified that magic is in many ways similar to writing. She specified that the truth can be revealed only with painstaking study. The Empress stated that in order to dispel the magic placed on the river, they must first find out the purpose of the spell and put an end to it all. She considered it an impossible task unless they interrogated the person who cast this magic. Kanak said that if everything she just said was true and mentioned the medicine merchants. Ezebia confirmed his opinion that there was a connection between Gilead and the sorcerer behind it all. Simon could not imagine that someone could play with the lives of ordinary people like this for profit. Ezebia said that they needed to keep themselves in their hands because all was not lost. Aslan asked what she meant. The girl explained that Marianne had received an invitation to a banquet where they wanted to announce that they would be distributing the medicine throughout the empire. Ezebia stated that the invitation was for her and they wanted to see her at the banquet. Aslan shouted that it was out of the question. He understood that time was short, but he was worried that he could not fall into this trap. Kanak also began to persuade his wife not to do this. The heroine said that she was aware of all the risks, but added that she would only feel worse knowing that people were dying. She also expressed the hope that a sorcerer might appear at the banquet, but said that even if he didn't, she would look for connections between him and Gilead. Ezebia offered her husband to do it together. She admitted that she wished Canuck was around when she met Guildmaster Gillier and added that she really needed his help right now. Kana replied that he could not refuse if she trusted him so much. The emperor ordered that a reply be sent to the guildmaster. Aslan shouted to his majesty not to do this. The man firmly stated that the emperor and Empress Riadan would be happy to attend the banquet. The royal couple arrived at the event. The heroine said that she thought it would be an ordinary social banquet, but they even prepared hunting grounds. She admitted that she had not been waiting for such an event for a long time. Ezebia said that she knew about the wealth of the Hilliers, but she didn't expect them to own so many forests. Canuck noted that there are many wild animals and insects in the forest, and it can be very dangerous for her here because she is so vulnerable. The wife replied that she was not as weak as he thought. She couldn't get Marianne's words out of her head. Once the maid admitted to the lady that the emperor visited the kitchen every day. The girl asked why he needed it. Marianne replied that she herself learned about this fact only yesterday. She said that His Majesty personally tastes all the dishes that are prepared for you to make sure that these dishes are safe. According to her, he makes a lot of trouble for the cooks with these actions. Ezebia replied that she didn't even know about it, but wondered why he would go to such lengths for her sake. Marianne replied that she thought he was very worried about her and her well-being. The maid admitted that they were all very worried also when His Majesty decided to attend the banquet. The girl added that now they are calm about Madame, that she will return safe and sound because they see how important she is to the owner. She assured Ezebia that as long as the emperor was on her side, she had nothing to worry about. Marianne asked the lady to go already and urged her to restore their peaceful future for the sake of them all. The heroine was brought back from her thoughts by Canuck, who started calling her and asking what happened. But the empress continued to wonder who she was to him after all. She also mentally asked herself how she felt about him. Canuck saw his wife's confused state and said that it is not too late to leave if she is not sure or has changed her mind. The girl replied that he was here next to her and assumed that what could go wrong. Ezebia mentally noted that now she knows one thing for sure: she feels completely safe next to him. The emperor did not have time to answer when he saw the host of the banquet. The guildmaster greeted the guests and thanked everyone who visited them today. The husband pressed his wife closer to him, who could not hide her excitement at this time. The host of the banquet introduced himself and told everyone present that his name was Roman. Ezebia thought to herself that this is the man. Roman wanted to remind everyone that every creature in this forest is under supervision because the safety of the guests is their highest priority. He encouraged everyone to enjoy the hunt. Canuck told his wife that he would go to the forest and let her stay on its outskirts. The wife assured that she would be careful. The emperor also promised that he would do his best to get the information she needed. Ezebia sweetly wished her husband a successful hunt. Canuck took out a handkerchief from his pocket as he was already heading for the forest. He mentioned the custom in the south when a knight with whom they want to be close is presented with a handkerchief. He decided that this time he would become his knight. Roman solemnly informed the guests that the hunt was about to begin. Ezebia decided that it must be far enough away and that this forest was one of the locations of Gilier's operations. She believed that there must be some kind of sign here. The heroine fell to the tree and asked if it could hear her. She said she needed his help. The girl asked him to share his wisdom with her. Immediately, the girl heard a voice that shouted that she was a sorceress and ordered her to go away. She decided that something was wrong here, because usually they don't behave like that with her. Ezebia answered and assured that she would not harm anyone, but only wanted to know more about the lords of the forest. The heroine again heard bad appeals, and a voice called someone a traitor, a destroyer, and said that he belongs in hell. She frankly did not understand what was happening. The empress realized that she was now looking at the memories of the tree. It showed her a picture of a cart, and she wondered what was in it. Ezebia seemed to be contemplating a secret conversation in the forest. Someone said that this party is not ready yet and suggested that things will go slower at this rate. Finally, the heroine realized with horror that one of the strangers was the guildmaster of Gier. She asked why he needed the dead bodies that were in the cart. But she was also worried about strange sounds around her. Ezebia also noticed that Roman's body began to change as soon as he took off his hood. The girl assumed, is magic involved here? Suddenly, she saw yet another face of a man, wondering what they could agree on. Ezebia guessed that the sorcerer had been masquerading as the guildmaster all this time, and she wondered if it was really the same man. She was very impressed that such a powerful sorcerer existed. The heroine learned from the tree that it was because of this man that these lands are now in ruins, but he caused the wrath of the goddess. It also informed that here in the forest, he was getting rid of the failed experiments. namely these bodies. Ezebia could not understand what kind of failed experiments it was about and wondered what was going on here at all. Already at the table, Kanak asked his wife what happened, because she quickly returned. The wife began to tell about the secrets of the forest, and her story was interrupted. They heard someone say that it was a great honor for them to have Empress Riodana as their guest. It was Roman who politely introduced himself. Ezebia noted about herself that up close she felt his power much more strongly. She decided that his magic was beyond her imagination. She thought it was the same wizard who served her brother, but decided that his magical signatures were different. But the heroine still had hope inside that it was the same man. She kept thinking about herself. What was he doing with the dead? Did they discover the cure through experiments on humans? Roman admitted that he was very happy, because he did not hesitate to discuss the future of the empire with the empress. Kanak was surprised and asked about the future of the empire. Ezebia kept a wary silence and listened as the guildmaster confirmed the future of the empire and said that it was quite unsettled for a number of reasons, sclerosis being one of them. The heroine mentally told herself that she needed to pull herself together. She understood that she needed to find out about his true motive for the drug monopoly. Finally, Ezebia said that she knew that his guild had built many apothecaries throughout the empire so that everyone would have the opportunity to purchase medicine. She noted that this is a good thing, but wondered if its so-called affordability is the real reason why ordinary common people cannot afford to buy these drugs. The heroine asked Mr. Roman what he thought about this. The man replied that all these difficulties were beyond his competence, because he was only responsible for obtaining imperial permits to open pharmacies. He explained that even ordinary people who have not heard of the guild and its influence are interested in buying their product and receiving proper treatment. Roman said that they just want to help people return to their normal lives and give them peace. However, he apologized and began to explain to Madame further. He stated that the Riodon came into existence very recently and that two aspects are important for the survival of the nation: military power and capital. Roman added that without these two things, the authorities will not be able to maintain the loyalty of subordinates. The guildmaster stated that he was only offering her a way to ensure the loyalty of his subordinates forever. Ezebia realized with sadness that the well-being of their people worries Roman the least of all. She complained to him that he was asking permission from the empire, and at the same time was not at all ashamed to admit that he was only seeking benefit for himself. The heroine asked why all this is happening. The empress was upset and remembered how at one time she almost went crazy, trying to understand Dietrich's ideas, but a new day brings new and new enemies. In her mind, she admitted that she couldn't do anything on her own without help. Ezebia told the guildmaster that if this was his true goal, then the empire had to deny the guild permission. Kanak also intervened and said that, in his opinion, the empress did not like Mr. Roman's idea, and added that he is only an obedient husband who dreams of making his wife happy. Roman replied that he understood and thanked them for considering his proposal anyway. He also asked the guests not to allow this conversation to spoil their overall impression of the festive evening. The guildmaster added that many wonderful things still await them today. The couple of emperors watched the fireworks. Kanak asked his wife if everything was okay and what she wanted to tell him. Ezebia answered that not here, because there are many ears around. The heroine again caught herself having rather strange thoughts. She noticed that the emperor always managed to calm her down when the situation seemed hopeless and her wishes impossible. And this is due to the fact that he is just nearby. Ezebia replied that she was perfectly fine and suggested what could be wrong with him being around her. She mentally tried to sort out her feelings for her husband. The girl thought that she could not even find the right words to describe their relationship. But she firmly decided that as soon as they dealt with the possible war, she would definitely open up to him and appear as she really is. She made this moment last forever. Kanak suggested that his wife might be suffering from thirst after he offered to bring her a drink. The man sipped from the glass, testing the drink. He handed his wife a glass and concluded that everything was fine. Ezebia replied that he needed a taster, not her. Kanak replied that he was not as important as she thought. The wife said that it was very important. The emperor laughed and joked that no one here had such resistance to poison as he did, and he was even willing to bet. He added that he would not allow anything to happen to his wife. Suddenly, Ezebia and those around her noticed with horror that instead of a drink, blood was flowing from her mouth. She remembered the man's words that the glass was absolutely safe. Kanak could not believe how this could happen. The emperor screamed and begged her not to die. The man cried and said it was his fault. He was willing to give his life for her, and that was his only wish. Kanak decided that he would never forgive this. He promised that he would find whoever did this and said that he would quarter him alive. The man decided that he would tear out his enemy's tongue and make his family watch the torture. He will make them feel what he feels now. Ezebia mentally tried her best to call Kanak. She was afraid that she could not leave him because everything could happen again. The heroine saw how Oslin and Simon were worried and begged that this would not happen and history would not repeat itself. Kanak sobbed uncontrollably over his wife's body. Everyone present shouted and continued to call the Empress. The Emperor also did not stop calling the girl by her name and did not let her die. Simon turned to His Majesty and suggested that there might still be time. He asked Kana to do something before it was too late. Kanak heard a voice scolding him that he was late again. He warned him that this was his only chance. People turned to the grief-stricken Emperor and began to try to call His Majesty. Oslin reported that they had caught the bandit. The man said that he confessed to everything, that it was he who poisoned the Empress's wine. The minister offered to take the killer away and start an investigation. Afterwards, Oslin called out to His Majesty in surprise, when he did not even listen to him and began to walk away. Kanak approached the captured bandit and looked him silently in the eyes. The Emperor knocked him to the ground and pushed him with his sword. The man howled in pain. His Majesty stepped on the killer's head and asked where the antidote was. Oslin tried to stop the Emperor, while the man on the throne shouted that he didn't know anything. Kanak shouted at the killer that he had confessed to what he had done, and now he dares to play an idiot. His Majesty asked the man, "Who is his master?" Ezebia felt that her whole body was on fire and in terrible pain. She wondered what was happening to her, and was she going to die? She remembered the man who selflessly called her by name. The heroine decided that she could not die like this, because the future would repeat itself again. She told herself to calm down and think. A thought came to her mind. Is it really a matter of guilt? But she immediately contradicted herself, because Kanak was fine when he tried it too. Is there some kind of substance that works on certain people? The girl thought that it might be something that works specifically on those who have magic, just like the situation with multiple sclerosis. Ezebia decided it was necessary to mention how she tweaked her magic for the sake of the experiment. The heroine decided to strengthen her magic in such a way that the poison would not work. The Empress convinced herself that she must survive and fight on for Kanak's sake. Oslin asked the Sir how long he was going to keep the aristocrats in the palace. He explained that despite the fact that they are in the guest part of the palace, they will still not be silent, because you cannot keep nobles under lock and key without good reasons. Kanak replied that the murderer was acting on the orders of the aristocrat and asked if that was not enough to arrest everyone. The minister declared that he was a cook from the palace kitchen and a person personally chosen and approved by the emperor. The man added that, in addition, his motives were understandable, and he did not change them even under torture. The killer shouted that this is a great nation built on the sacrifices of its people. He accused the emperor that he dared to falsify their memory by marrying a foreign girl. The man explained that he had done a worthy deed and asked to kill him. The emperor thought that he was just constantly repeating what was firmly stuck in his head, but Kanak understood that an ordinary cook could not plan all this on his own. His Majesty recalled how the killer had called Ezebia a foreign girl many times. Oslin tried to cry out to His Majesty at such moments. The man suggested that the House of Fernan might be involved in this case, because the past dynasty was mixed on the purity of blood. Oslin countered that all the members of the Fernan family were already dead, but he had killed each one himself. Kanak asked the subordinate how he could be sure of this, since someone could have survived. Here, Yaxer intervened, reminding that the cook had already confessed to everything. He asked the emperor, why involve a family that he had already eliminated a long time ago? The young man added that in the best case, he would show himself to be an unreliable fool in the eyes of the aristocrats. Jaxer turned to Kanak and said that his empire had risen from the ashes anyway. He suggested that at the moment, the emperor seemed unwilling to do his best for her as a ruler. The young man reminded His Majesty that they had rebuilt Riadan from scratch, and they were responsible. Kanak shouted that it was all up to the old man. He reported that 5 days have passed and Ezebia still does not wake up. The husband regretfully admitted that nothing was helping his wife. Kanak declared that he would interrogate the aristocrats himself. Subordinate men tried to stop him. Taking his wife by the hand, he promised that he would choose the whole truth from them. He also added that after that they would beg for death themselves. Jaxer cursed and shouted that first he was arresting aristocrats without any reason, and now he was going to torture them. He stated that this useless girl drove him crazy. Aslan admonished him to watch his words. The minister explained that she was still his wife and assumed that he could be understood in such a situation. Jaxer replied that Aslan had no idea what he was talking about because he had never seen the emperor in any other way. He explained that this was not the Canuck they knew well. The young man declared that his majesty was completely off the rails. Then the events that happened many years ago in the Riadon Mountains were mentioned. The stranger tortured the man, calling him an insolent worm and asking how he dares to contradict his commander. The gentleman next to me said that it was necessary to stop and not waste energy. The stranger turned to the man lying on the ground and said that he was one of the slaves who had forgotten his place. He added that he teaches them manners lessons every time. The tortured boy's name was Canuck Riadon, and he was 14 years old at the time. He heard the order that he should be locked in the stalls and not given a drop of water. He was thrown into prison and wondered how long he would last here. Canuck thought about how many days had already passed and worried that without water he would die like this here. The prisoner thought that maybe it would be even better this way and suddenly saw an unfamiliar girl. She fell at his feet and apologized. Kana asked, "Who is she?" The stranger explained that she just saw someone lying here. The guy asked how she managed to slip past the guard. Surprised, the girl asked about the guard and answered that there was no one there. Canuck decided that he was not being followed because they had already buried him, and there was no point in it. He cursed and sent them to hell. The stranger asked if everything was okay with him and offered to call a doctor. He replied that she should not waste her time. Canuck remembered his recent tortures and asked her to leave him to die. He also asked, "Since what time does it matter to them, nobles, their lives?" The girl asked why he said that, and how dare he ask her to leave him to die here. She admitted that he was too sick to take care of himself. The stranger said that he can think whatever he wants, but she just wants to help him. Kana asked, "Who is she?" He said that she doesn't even know him, but she brings him medicine and food every day. A week before that, the blonde again visited the prisoner. The young man asked what such a noble maiden was doing in such a place. The girl expressed hope that they would finally get to know each other. The stranger said that her name is Azebia Ketteril, and she is from the kingdom of Arkai, which is north of here. The young man was very surprised when he heard about Arkaya. He remembered that the kingdom that had sent reinforcements for this monster hunt had that name. Canuck concluded that she was no ordinary rich girl. He decided that she was just a bored little princess who found herself a toy in the form of a dirty slave boy. Canuck asked Azebia what happened to her leg. She began to tell that she had soiled her clothes yesterday. The girl reported that her brother noticed it. She admitted that he was looking for her bridegroom among the members of the Wanan imperial family, and she herself was oblivious, although she should have impressed him. The brother apologized to his sister and swore that this would not happen again, because he should not have lost his temper with her. Kana asked in surprise about Vanin, a member of the imperial family. He declared that he was not a member of the imperial family, but only a distant relative of the ruling house of Fernan. That's why he doesn't have silver hair and purple eyes. The boy offered Azebia to think for herself. If he were a prince, would he hunt monsters in such a place? Canuck admitted that he knew who he really was, and revealed that he had once tortured a slave for fun. He added that he intervened in this because he thought that the end of that slave. The prisoner said that Vanin is evil, and you don't need to make an impression on someone like him. He also warned the girl to be more careful next time. The boy asked the princess not to come there again for the sake of an unnecessary slave. Azebia replied that he was right, and she really did not want to marry him. She admitted that her leg hurt a lot all night, but she was afraid to show it. The girl said that she convinced herself that she deserved it, and that it would be better for everyone. The girl admitted that she simply closed her eyes to everything because she wanted to become Vanin's wife without even knowing what kind of person he was. Azebia said that Canuck was not like that, and unlike her, he did not close his eyes. On the contrary, he did everything to protect others. The girl said that origin does not define a person and asked the boy if he did not agree with her. Canuck wanted to contradict the princess. The princess said that her brother's anger would not prevent her from visiting the boy. She said she would take him with her to Arkaya, and he would become her knight. Azebia also reported that it was a custom in the south for ladies to give their handkerchiefs to knights they liked. Canuck tried to deny and say that he was not a knight. The princess sweetly replied that he was the best knight for her. Canuck recalled that it was then that he first dreamed about the future without being ashamed of himself. Then he thought that it was not he who was the best, but she. But suddenly, he heard orders to bring that slave. He was sent to the battlefield the very next morning, so the boy did not have time to say these words to the princess. Kanak recalled that from that very day he did everything to see Azebia one more time. He wondered if she remembered their promise. The young man hoped to become a man who would be worthy of Her Highness's affection. All this time, Kanak was waiting for the moment to reunite with her and become her knight. Then he decided that he had to earn his place to be next to the princess. Suddenly, Kanak heard a voice urging him to look at himself. Kanak was surprised when he saw the girl, and he called her Azebia. And then the events that have already been mentioned happened. Kanak held the girl in his arms, a deadly arrow sticking out of her chest, and he desperately begged her to open her eyes. He remembered how he once told her that he was not a knight, but she denied that he was the real knight for her. Kanak wept and said that Azebia was very mistaken in him. He explained that he failed to protect the only thing he was supposed to protect. The young man declared that there was no longer any reason to continue fighting. He noted that he was never able to become a knight. He was interrupted from those memories by Yaxer, who informed him that they had found this chest in the royal resting place. In the chest was an ancient book, which stated that every ruler of Arkai was given a chance to appear before the Silver Forest. Kanak read further that by standing in front of the forest, one can make one wish to the one who preserves these lands. The emperor was very interested when he read about the wish and decided that the Silver Forest would help him get Azebia back. But he understood that for this, first of all, it was necessary to take the throne of Arkai. Since then, a desperate fight began. It remained for Kana to find the last survivor of the Arkai ruling family. It was Dietrich Ketterl. The emperor decided that he must kill him and usurp the throne before appearing before the Silver Forest. The minister informed His Majesty that according to intelligence, the mage who killed the empress was more likely working for King Dietrich. He concluded that if this was true, Her Majesty had been killed by her own brother. Kanak decided that he had planned everything correctly, if only to avenge the death of Azebia. Aslan asked the emperor if this was necessary, because Arkai was already almost destroyed, and Dietrich would soon meet his death without his intervention. What was the real purpose of this war, he asked. He added that His Majesty would not leave Archaea alone, even after burning almost everything there. The minister wondered if this northern wasteland was more important than Riadona's native lands. The subordinate assumed that it could be somehow connected with the body of his wife, which he is so desperately trying to preserve with mana stones. The youth informed Kanak that Yaxer was dead. Aslan said that he and his men were following in the footsteps of Dietrich, and suddenly they were ambushed by northern enemies. The minister asked if this was what the emperor, an empire built on blood, sought. He expressed hope that it is not too late to fix everything. The young man begged Kanak to think of his people who needed him so much. The emperor held his wife's hand and was torn between different sides in his thoughts. He remembered how he had friends, constantly replaying Aslan's last words in his head. But at the same time, he could not leave his beloved wife Azebia. Soon the emperor was informed that King Arkai was dead. The war was over, and they could return home. But even at this moment, Kanak heard Aslan's words about whether this was what he wanted, an empire built on blood. He felt pain inside, but he couldn't explain his actions to others. At last he came to the Silver Forest and addressed him. He said that he came here as the owner of these lands and asked to fulfill his wish. He begged the forest to bring Azebia back to life. He heard a voice answer that called him very lonely. Lise also added that despite the path that brought him here, he was still a foreigner, so his wish would never be granted. Kanak shouted, but asked why he thought so. He claimed that this forest promised him one wish. The Silver Forest agreed, but clarified that this desire should not contradict the will of the gods. The voice said that the death of this girl is already written in the history of the universe, and even he cannot change it. The emperor called it a lie and suggested, then what is the point? He hoped he could bring Azebia back, and eventually realized that she had gone to a place where even the gods could not bring her back. The young man remembered how, once upon a time in prison, the girl had told him that she would take him with her to Arkai, and decided that now was the time for her to fulfill her promise. Kanak said that if he couldn't get her back, he would just follow her, but suddenly a voice turned to him and asked him not to draw his sword and not be so imprudent, because it was not yet time for complete despair. The young man was lost in guesses. Who was talking to him? Goddess. She appeared before him and said that she was the creator of the Silver Forest, her sister's resting place. She clarified that mortals call her Fehar. Kanak enthusiastically said that the goddess herself was before him. Fehar informed her that Azebia was to become a lone star in the dark heavens, a savior of a world consumed by madness. It was thanks to her will that the world was to become bright and flourish again. The goddess admitted that her strength was not enough to preserve her life, which was full of severe trials. She added that she couldn't help her succeed either, so now she wants to use the emperor to give her one last chance to change her destiny. The voice of the forest informed Fehar that the fate of this girl could not be changed. The goddess agreed and specified that she wanted to turn back time, to return to the world when Ezebia was still alive. Fehar asked her sister if she really didn't want this girl to be alive. The Silver Forest replied that she had been chosen as its guardian before she was created as a goddess. The voice added that it was also grieving over the death of its guardian, but explained that this world was no longer the haven of balance it once was. Lis stated, because deities disappear sooner or later, and they are no exception. He supposed that even if they could bring Ezebia back to life, what would protect her from further trials? Fehar replied that this is exactly why these two deserve another chance. She turned to Cana and said that he had already tried his luck and taken what did not belong to him. The goddess warned him that he must fight again to prevent the death of his beloved. She asked if he would go against fate once again for his wife. Canik replied that he would go against fate for Ezebia. He asked to be given this chance. The young man swore that he would do everything to protect her. The voice of the forest called the emperor an interesting mortal. He asked why he was giving up everything, since he single-handedly made himself ruler and brought the empire and Archaea to his knees. Canik remembered the scene, as back then, as a girl, Ezebia saw a flower and said that it was familiar to her and that there are such plants in the north. The boy asked if it was true. The girl replied that he would be able to see for himself when they arrived in Archaea. She also promised him that he could read all her books. Ezebia even told him about the candied raspberry she couldn't live without and said she would share it with him. She dreamed that they would spend time in the garden, reading books and eating various delicacies. Ezebia asked Canak if he would like it. The young man answered the princess that it was certainly so. The emperor remembered that he had sworn to be her knight. Then, after returning from the battlefield, the boy Cana decided that now his main task was to find her, and he decided that this time he would not lose her under any circumstances. He remembered that when they met again, he saw in front of him the girl Ezebia, who was stronger and wiser. The young princess asked the boy if he was all right. She explained that the elderly man she helped said he saw the boy locked in the stalls. The young man was very surprised when he heard the question from her. "What is his name?" He introduced himself and told Milady that his name was Marcus. Canak decided that he should be careful because the past events will definitely happen, and Dietrich will try to kill Ezebia again. He understood that he must once again seize the throne of the empire and do everything possible to protect Ezebia. The man thought that this was his last chance, so he decided not to lose it this time. In her long dream, Ezebia saw a man. At last she realized that it was Canak. The empress opened her eyes and spoke her husband's name. Canak could not believe. Did his wife wake up? The emperor heard the conclusion that it was just a miracle and the poison completely left her body. Simon concluded that she didn't even have any side effects, considering that she had slept for the past 5 days. Ezebia was more than surprised when she heard the number of women. Marian reassured her that it was only 5 days and added that they were very glad to see Madame in good health. The young doctor was also moved. He confirmed the maid's words and began to cry. The empress reassured Simon. Ezebia promised Marianne and Simon that she would be more careful from now on. The girl understood that they must have been very worried about her. The heroine decided that it was not easy for Kanahu either, although he does not show it. She assured everyone present that even now everything will be fine and they are safe. Canak admitted to his wife that everyone was very worried about her. He added that Yaxer and Oslin wanted to drop all their affairs to visit her and had to even refuse them. Ezebia asked what happened to Guildmaster Giller. The emperor replied that he was currently under investigation and told his wife that she should not worry about it now. The girl wanted to deny. The heroine assumed that Canak probably does not know, but it is Roman who is behind the attempted assassination. She wondered how he could risk his guild by trying to poison her right at the banquet. Although now she understood that he did not join the guild for money or business, but his real goal was to take her life. Ezebia thought that he, just like Dietrich, wanted to use her death to sow chaos in the empire and start a war. The heroine remembered that this was exactly what the sorcerer from the past chronology sought, so she assumed that Roman and the sorcerer could be the same person. The girl lamented that she did not immediately recognize him because he has a different magical signature. Canak asked his wife, "What is the matter?" She continued to wonder why he was collecting corpses. Was it to enhance his magical powers? Ezebia turned to Canak and informed her that she urgently needed to meet with Roman. She expressed confidence that she would be able to deal with everything just by talking to him. Kanak replied to his wife that he believed she had gone through a lot, but asked her to leave this matter to him. She said it was very important. The heroine asked the emperor why he does not allow her to meet with Roman. Does he really not trust her? The man replied that he trusted her without a doubt. He just didn't want to put her in danger again. He added that if something happened to her, he would not survive it. Kanak explained that she almost died in front of him. The emperor admitted that he couldn't keep calm now after nearly losing her. Ezebia said that the man was too scared and asked what was bothering him so much. She wondered what happened while she was sleeping. The wife gave an ultimatum to Kanak and said that if he did not tell, she would have to find out everything herself. Kanak admitted that Roman had disappeared. Ezebia began to scream in horror. How could this happen? The man assured her that he could explain everything. He said that he was taken into custody for an attempt on her life, and Oslin interrogated him every day. The man continued and reported that when Oslin came for questioning yesterday, Roman had already disappeared, disguised as the prisoner he had killed. Kanak admitted that by the time they found out, it was already too late, but he could return at any moment to finish his job. The emperor explained that he did not hide this from the girl, but only wanted to give her a moment of peace and separate her from everything. He was aware that these were all consequences of his actions. Ezebia asked why he considered it his fault. The heroine did not expect to hear the man's confession that he had shed a lot of blood to seize the throne. Kanak added that she must now suffer the consequences of what he had brought upon them. The wife continued to convince her husband that it was not his fault. His Majesty declared that he had long suspected that someone of the Fernan family had managed to survive the revolution. He wondered who else would dare to attempt on the Empress's life. He said he knew the Fernans would strike back at some point. Kanak admitted that he focused on freeing the slaves and rebuilding the empire instead of eliminating dissenters, because he was prepared to take such a risk. The man said that he still paid for his decision and voiced the reason for all this, namely his short-sightedness. Ezebia realized that there was no choice and declared that she had to tell him something. She thought she should confess to Kanak that Roman works for her brother, not the Fernans. An outside voice told the heroine that she would give herself away because he would think that she had been spying all this time for Dietrich. The voice continued to tease Ezebia and asked if she was afraid that this might push Kanak away. The heroine heard that she had remained stupid and had lived so many lives, but had never regained her spirit. The girl was sure that Kanak would feel betrayed once he found out how much she hadn't told him. Kana said that nothing mattered, and he just wanted her to be always by his side. He asked to promise his wife that she would always be there. The heroine understood that he was in pain and firmly decided that she would not leave him alone in this hell. She knew how hurtful self-doubt can be when it comes with loneliness, so she couldn't let him go through that. Kanak asked Ezebia what happened. She replied that she had lied to him. She admitted that Roman is a magician and suggested that it was with the help of magic that he was able to deceive his people and escape. She added that Fernan's house was in no way connected with this case. Ezebia informed that Roman works for her brother Dietrich, and she was sent here to be a pawn in the game. The girl explained that Dietrich needed a reason to start a war, and her murder could become such a reason. The emperor asked if she really knew about all this and why she did not ask for his help in time. The wife replied that she did not want to leave him. She admitted that she liked his kindness very much, but she wanted to stay with him as long as possible. Ezebia admitted that she could not give him anything in return, and that she had acted selfishly towards him.